Chapter 1. Oh, it hurts. Her body was penetrated without any foreplay, and Yi Huanyan cried out in pain. But it didn't seem to be of any use. This was already the 5th time tonight. The man who was supposed to be sleeping beside her woke up at some point. His cold fingers lit fire all over her body, as if he was deliberately seducing her. Then, after a few seconds, he turned over and directly entered her. As he moved in and out, she felt that the pain was not as strong as before. Instead, she felt that she was enjoying it. Yi Huanyan's 5 fingers tugged at the bedding under her body tightly, and her teeth made enya sounds. In the quiet space, accompanied by the creaking sound of the bed, the man's movements became wilder. After an unknown amount of time, this movement gradually stopped. She tried to grab the silk blanket to cover her naked body, but Ling Han didn't allow her to do so. He threw the blanket to one side first and placed his arms on either side of her body. He stared at her face with interest. "What's wrong? Are you shy?" She didn't dare to look at him directly. "Weren't you enjoying it very much just now? Who are you pretending to be so pure for?" Ling Han lowered his body little by little, gradually approaching her palm-sized face. His rosy lips curved into a subtle arc, as if he was deliberately destroying the fortress in her heart. "Don't forget, I said before that I would only be satisfied when I made your body loose. I will only let you go when I am satisfied." He deliberately emphasized the word made, and then enjoyed the embarrassed look on her face with satisfaction. The appearance of the blush on her face and the tight grip of her slender fingers on the bedding made his mood very good. After a while, he sighed coldly, turned over, and got off the bed. He picked up a white towel and wrapped it around the area below his abdomen and lazily walked toward the bathroom. Taking medicine is not good for the body. Remember to take it out. Don't play the emotional card with my grandma when you are pregnant. I don't buy it. After the crisp sound of the door closing, the sound of water splashing could be heard in the bathroom, completely cutting off Ling Han's voice. Yi Huanyan opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling above her head. As the blush on her face faded little by little, a touch of paleness appeared. Take it out." She laughed at herself, as if she was already used to the man's tone. That's right, he hated her to the bone. How could he leave that thing in her body and make her pregnant with his child? When Yi Huanyan woke up again, the sky was already bright and the empty space beside her was cold. She dragged her aching body and simply washed up. She tied up her messy hair and changed into a sapphire blue dress. Then she applied some foundation on the bruises on her neck to cover the small hickeys. Downstairs, a few servants stood around the dining table to serve Ling Han. Ling Han leaned back in the main chair as if he had no bones in his body. The utensils in his hands were raised and lowered in an elegant and noble manner. Noticing that she was standing at the top of the stairs, the knife and fork in his hand paused. He said casually, "Grandma just called and asked me to take you back to the old mansion on Saturday." As he spoke, he cut another small piece of steak and put it into his mouth. "Back to the old house?" Yi Huanyan was a little hesitant. She slowly walked down the last step, her palm-sized face full of confusion. "Grandma, does she have something important to say? Otherwise, why would she ask them to go back for no reason?" But these words were even more jarring in Ling Han's ears. His eyes unconsciously darkened. With a clang, the knife and fork collided with the bowl, making a crisp sound. Chapter 2. Something important. The corners of Ling Han's lips curled up into a leisurely smile. "What important things do you want Grandma to say? Huh?" His mysterious chuckle gave Yi Huanyan goosebumps. She widened her eyes and watched him get up from the chair, pick up his suit jacket, and approach her step by step. After so many years, one thing that could not be denied was that she was afraid of Ling Han. Very, very afraid. His gloomy and unpredictable personality and wicked behavior always scared her to the point that her innards trembled. Whether it was in bed or not, she was afraid of him. At this moment, Ling Han was less than half a meter away from her. His eyes narrowed dangerously. She wanted to take a step back, but the handrail of the stairs was blocking her. She had nowhere to go. If I'm not mistaken, the important thing you want Grandma to announce the most is our marriage, right? Meeting her shocked gaze, Ling Han's footsteps finally stopped. Their bodies were tightly pressed against each other, his 185 tall figure completely enveloping her petite body. The atmosphere froze. Yi Huanyan glared and shook her head. I don't deny it, and don't pretend to be innocent in front of me. Yi Huanyan, do you think I don't know what you're planning? His gorgeous and lazy voice was mixed with obvious sarcasm. Climb into my bed, get pregnant with my child, and officially become the young mistress of the Ling family. From then on, you'll wash away your dirty identity as an illegitimate daughter. The man spoke slowly, and every word was enunciated clearly. Yi Huanyan's face paled. Even though she was humiliated, she didn't dare show it. She tried to defend herself. It's not what you think. It was just an accident. Ling Han seemed to have heard a funny word, but his tone was so cold that it made her feel like she was in an ice cellar. You mean it was just an accident that you slept in my bed and Grandma saw it? Yi Huanyan's face was a mix of green and red. Just as her body was about to fall, Ling Han suddenly grabbed her wrist. He used his body to press her against the handrail of the stairs. His cold eyes locked onto her face. Or do you really think that you can get your wish of marrying me just because you have Grandma to back you up? No, I didn't. Yi Huanyan's face turned pale. The moment Ling Han's thin lips parted slightly, the villa's doors were suddenly pushed open. Assistant Xiao, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, walked over respectfully and stood beside him. Young Master Ling, the car is ready. You can go to the office now. The atmosphere was so cold that it was suffocating. I got it, the man said in a low voice, but his gaze didn't leave Yi Huanyan's face. Xiao Mu glanced at the two of them, whose bodies were pressed tightly together. He tactfully lowered his head and stood obediently, waiting for Ling Han. Han. Yi Huanyan called out weakly through her pale lips. Hearing this, Ling Han's entire body shook. A myriad of emotions flashed past his eyes, but they were quickly suppressed by him. He stared at the beautiful face in front of him and chuckled. Do you know why I allowed Grandma to do what she did and let you stay here? Yi Huanyan didn't understand. Ling Han sneered when he met her confused gaze. He said slowly, no man would reject a free bed partner. Chapter 3. He was half joking and half serious, admiring her stiff expression. Then he let go of her slender wrist and took out a white handkerchief from his trouser pocket in disgust, rubbing it with both hands. He threw the handkerchief to Xiao Mu after he was done wiping and strode past her. I'm leaving first, Secretary Yi. A teasing voice came from the direction of the door, and Yi Huanyan suddenly realized that Ling Han had left. He had both hands in his trouser pockets, and his legs under his straight trousers were neither fast nor slow, unbridled and elegant. His hearty laughter mixed with a hint of coldness entered her ears. It's almost time to go to work. You'll be punished if you're late. Xiao Mu looked at her in confusion. He wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, he turned around and quickly caught up with Ling Han's footsteps. In the huge villa, other than the helpers who were looking at each other, Yi Huanyan was the only one left. Do you know why I acquiesced to Grandma's actions and let you stay here? Because there's a free bed partner. As long as you're a man, you probably won't reject it. As if possessed, the man's voice kept ringing in her ears. Her body suddenly went limp, and she held onto the railing behind her. A chill ran down his spine. So, his definition of her was just a bed partner. He only wanted to sleep with her, but he didn't want to give her a status. So that's why, young madam, are you okay? A young helper went up to support her. She wanted to shake her head and say, I'm fine, but it was as if there was something stuck in her throat. At this moment, she heard another helper's soft scolding voice. What young madam? Young Master Ling hasn't acknowledged her identity yet. What's the use of old madam's acquiescence? If young master doesn't agree to hold the wedding, she can't even be considered a fiancée. The voice sounded very soft, but in the quiet hall, it was like a deep water bomb, exploding in everyone's ears. Isn't that so? At most, she's a woman who climbed into young Master Ling's bed. But young Master Ling has slept with so many women. She's just one of them. Perhaps it's the least favored branch. When the servants thought about young Master Ling's special treatment to this woman, they became bolder and started chatting happily. Yi Huanyan's expression became uglier and uglier as she listened to the mocking whispers. She forced herself to suppress the grievance in her heart and forced a smile. Perhaps this was Ling Han's revenge on her. His hatred for her was so deep that he might not be able to quell it for the rest of his life. Yi Huanyan's workplace wasn't originally pleasure group, but she couldn't resist Grandma Ling's request and was forced to work beside Ling Han. Therefore, when Ling Han called him Secretary Yi, he was not wrong at all. The pleasure and pleasure group was the foundation of the Ling family. Since the Ling family had only one heir, it naturally fell into the hands of Ling Han. He spent 7 years building it into an entertainment empire. In the entertainment industry, he created nearly half of the famous female stars in the entertainment industry. For example, Beauty Mai, who had just been rumored to be in a relationship with the movie king, and In Guogua, the host of TR Live streaming platform. Secretary Yi, there's a document here that you need to send to each department. There's also a report that needs to be sent to the president's office after review. The report is very important, so don't lose it. Mia, who had a pair of slender and beautiful legs, left behind a stack of blue documents and left leisurely. Yi Huanyan's fingers left the mouse and opened the document. After skimming through it, she thought of the words President's Office, and her head started to hurt again. No one in the company knew about the hidden things between her and Ling Han, and no one knew about their relationship. But if she had to pretend that nothing had happened in front of Ling Han, she would feel guilty, and very guilty. Chapter 4. Knock, knock, knock. Yi Huanyan mustered all her courage and knocked on the door of the CEO's office on the 17th floor. There was dead silence. Knock, knock, knock. She raised her hand and knocked twice. There was still no answer. Yi Huanyan held her breath. When she was about to knock for the third time, someone popped his head out of the office and reminded her kindly, Secretary Yi. CEO Ling went to the conference room for a meeting. I don't think he'll be back for a while. If you have any documents, put them on his desk first. She was stunned. She looked around and realized that there were indeed fewer people in the office. They probably all went to the meeting together. Okay, thank you. She smiled and thanked the person. Then she pressed the doorknob. It wasn't the first time Yi Huanyan came here, but every time she came, she would be shocked by the clean and tidy office in front of her. Ling Han was a person with a high degree of misophobia. So every time they slept together, there would be several servants wiping her body clean from head to toe. Even her body hair would be removed. And Lincoln's office was just like him, simple and bright without any impurities. After putting the documents on the sandalwood desk, Yi Huanyan prepared to leave. But her eyes inadvertently fell on a photo that was placed in the drawer. She couldn't control her curiosity and pulled the photo out. It was an old, yellowed photo. There were traces of wear on the edges of the photo. It seemed that the owner often rubbed it with his fingers. But when Yi Huanyan saw the person in the photo clearly, her eyes widened in shock. The girl in the photo was wearing a school-style short skirt with her hair in braids. Wasn't that her? This was a photo of her when she was in her first year of university. How did Ling Han get it? Holding the photo tightly, Yi Huanyan was puzzled. She didn't put the photo back. Instead, she squeezed and clenched it until a gloomy and deep voice came from behind her. What are you doing? Yi Huanyan tightened her grip on the photo. She hurriedly turned around and instinctively put her fingers behind her back. She tried her best to force a faint smile on her pretty face. You finished the meeting? However, a layer of uncontrollable nervousness and uneasiness had already surfaced in his heart. I came to deliver some documents to you, but I saw that you weren't here, so I put the things in first, she stammered. Now that the things have been delivered, can I leave now? Ling Han didn't say anything. He was wearing a suit and a simple white shirt, giving people the impression that he was a peerless lunatic. His eyes were dark and cold, and his lips were pale. There was almost no extra expression on his face. However, his slightly narrowed eyes still carried traces of pressure that reached Yi Huanyan's heart. His slender figure stood at the door. It wasn't that he didn't notice her small movements just now. At this moment, he stared at the lotus-like arm that she had hidden behind her and slowly walked towards her. "What are you holding in your hand?" His dark and hoarse voice had a hint of playfulness. Yi Huanyan swallowed her saliva. As Ling Han came closer, she slowly stepped back. A thin layer of sweat had already formed in the palm of her hand that was hiding the photo. "Nothing." She shook her head. Her heart was unbearably nervous. But how could Ling Han believe her? He lightly snorted and turned his head. Yi Huanyan hurriedly moved her body away again. This action made Ling Han's good-looking brows furrow. He didn't give her any chance to react. He quickly took a step forward and pressed his thick chest against her. She had no place to retreat and was pushed to the side of the table. Then his long arms stretched out behind her. At the same time, she felt a chill in her palm. Ling Han's slender fingers were already holding the photo. He waved it in front of her as if he was showing off. Chapter 5. Yi Huanyan wanted to snatch it back, but the man was 185 centimeters tall. She could only reach the tip of his nose in her high heels. She tried to reach it a few times, but he managed to avoid it. Ling Han looked at her anxious face, and his thin lips curved into a cold smile. "You're so anxious. Don't tell me you stole some confidential information from me when I wasn't around and prepared to sell it to your business partner?" The Ling Corporation had attracted a lot of attention in the past few years, and there were many companies that wanted to crush it. However, Yi Huanyan didn't expect that Ling Han would actually treat her as a commercial spy. Even though she was used to his sarcasm, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart at this moment. "Give it back to me." She was anxious and reached out to grab it. "What if I say no?" He looked at her jumping with interest, as if he was interested in this kind of interaction. The little woman's cheeks were dyed with a shade of red, and she was extremely alluring. His extremely cold and thin face seemed to show traces of melting. Then he lowered his head and looked at the trophy that he had snatched from her hands. Yi Huanyan knew that it was too late, so she didn't try to snatch it back. Instead, she explained dryly, "I saw it by accident." "It's not." Time froze. When Ling Han saw the person in the photo clearly, the smile on his face slowly froze bit by bit, and a wave of cold air flowed out from his body. The woman in the photo had a small, oval face that made her look gentle and charming. She was like a fresh little lily, showing the innocence of a young girl. That was the most beautiful memory in his heart, until he found out the truth of something. From then on, the illusion in his heart was shattered. This photo was originally mine. Noticing Ling Han's gloomy expression, Yi Huanyan's heart was in turmoil. She thought that her stealing had angered him, and her pale lips were filled with doubt. "Why is it with you?" Her voice became softer and softer, and she felt uneasy. Ling Han's expression was somewhat frightening. If you want it, I'll leave it to you." She generously made a concession. She only hoped that he wouldn't be so cold. The cold air in the office was almost freezing people to death. After an unknown amount of time, Ling Han's thin lips finally moved, as if he had returned to his senses. He tightened his grip on the photo and looked up at her. "You don't think I care about this photo, do you?" Yi Huanyan was stunned. Her gaze turned to his raised hand, and her pair of beautiful eyes widened in astonishment. "What?" She didn't seem to understand. However, in the next second, a piercing sound was suddenly heard in the silent air. The photo that had been intact just a moment ago was suddenly torn into two halves and held in Ling Han's hand. His well-defined fingers twisted the shredded paper until it changed shape, and he held it in his hand as if he was crushing it. This sudden action completely stunned Yi Huanyan. "You." For a moment, she didn't know what to say. If I keep it and cause you any misunderstandings, then I'll destroy it. Ling Han's smile had a hint of mockery. He took a step forward and pinched her chin with his cold fingers. He shushed her in a low voice. Yi Huanyan, do you know why I want to keep it? His cold gaze and the devilish charm on his face formed an extreme contrast. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from his thin lips. Because only its existence can remind me at all times that the pure and innocent look on your face is nothing but an act. Chapter 6. He increased the strength in his hand and pinched her face so hard that it changed shape. She felt a sharp pain in her bones. Yi Huanyan hissed in pain, which made Ling Han's cold heart throb a little. Get out. He didn't look at her anymore. He just frowned impatiently and released the hand that was holding her face. His tone was tinged with a hint of command. Yi Huanyan almost stumbled and fell to the ground. She grabbed the edge of the table in time and steadied herself. She was dazed, and there was a buzzing sound in her head. Okay. A few pieces of photo shredded on the ground stung her eyes. A wave of grievance and sadness welled up in her heart, but she forced herself not to cry. After forcing a smile, she lowered her eyes and walked away carefully to avoid the shredded papers on the floor. Before she left the office, she didn't forget to close the door. Ling Han was the only one left in the office. He stared at the shredded photos on the floor, and his throat moved slightly. After a dozen seconds, he slowly squatted down and picked up the shredded photos one by one. He followed his memory and pieced the photos together. There were a few deep cracks in the photos, but it still couldn't stop the girl's innocent smile. Ling Han's rough fingers rubbed the photos. Although his expression was cold, there was finally a little warmth in his eyes. Yi Huanyan returned to her seat. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she was exhausted. Her colleague and friend Ji Xiaoya poked her arm. Huanyan, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? Did President Ling scold you just now? Yi Huanyan shook her head and forced a smile. I'm fine. Ling Han's bad attitude and behavior had hurt her, but there was a reason for it. To put it bluntly, she blamed herself for doing something that he couldn't forgive her for. Don't lie to me. If you're fine, why are you crying? Ji Xiaoya didn't believe her, but in order to coax Yi Huanyan, she rolled her eyes. By the way, I heard that Sun Yanhua's concert will be held on Saturday at the U Square. I managed to get 2 tickets with great difficulty. Come with me. Ji Xiaoya looked at her expectantly with stars in her eyes. Saturday, Yi Huanyan was stunned. She suddenly remembered that Ling Han had said that he would take her back to the old manor on Saturday. At this critical juncture, she didn't dare and didn't want to disobey him. Moreover, it had been a long time since she had gone back to visit her grandmother. No, Xiaoyu, you go by yourself. I have something on Saturday, so I won't be coming. She politely refused. Aya, what could possibly happen? Ji Xiaoya chattered incessantly. She simply leaned in front of her and whispered into her ear. Sun Yanhua, it's hard to get a ticket for his concert. And it's at night, so it won't affect your business. Take care of your business in the afternoon and go to the concert with me tonight. Okay. Hearing the name Sun Yanhua again, Yi Huanyan felt like she had seen it before, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it before. Xiaoyu, Yi Huanyan helplessly called out. Okay, I don't care. It's settled. See you on Saturday. Ji Xiaoya smiled and gestured at her. Then she slid off the chair. Yi Huanyan's breath was stuck in her throat. Saturday, whatever. Ling Han should be taking her back to the old manor at noon. In the afternoon, she would chat with her grandmother for a bit and then go to the concert. Hopefully, there wouldn't be any conflict between the two. Chapter 7. Saturday arrived as promised. Because it was a holiday, there was no need to go to work. Yi Huanyan slept late, so it was almost noon when she woke up. The maid knocked on the door. She answered in a daze, put on her clothes, and opened the door, revealing a timid face. Miss Yi, young Master Ling is at the door. He said he won't be coming in and asked you to hurry up. The girl said timidly, not even daring to look at her face. She said slowly, young Master Ling said he doesn't like to wait, so he's only giving you 5 minutes. Otherwise, the maid paused and stole a glance at her. He said you'll have to bear the consequences. Bear the consequences. Yi Huanyan vaguely knew what the consequences were. But 5 minutes was not enough for her to wash up. The sleepiness in Yi Huanyan's mind immediately disappeared. It had been 5 days since Ling Han tore her photo to shreds. During this time, she hadn't even seen him. He hadn't returned to this villa either. He must have been forced to pick her up by Grandma Ling's order today. Because of the time limit, Yi Huanyan didn't dare to waste too much time. She casually picked out a V-neck shirt from the closet and matched it with a pair of leggings. She let her long black hair down, grabbed her bag, and went downstairs. The shoes at the entrance were neatly arranged. She changed into a pair of white casual flats and pushed open the villa's front door. A gust of cold wind hit her face. It seemed to have cooled down. Yi Huanyan wrapped her arms around her chest and shivered. She wanted to go upstairs and put on a jacket, but the black Maserati parked outside the villa was too eye-catching. The car window rolled down, revealing half of Ling Han's chiseled face. He obviously looked unhappy. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth and decided not to go upstairs. She quickly walked toward the black car. The car door opened and closed. She lowered her head and put on her seatbelt. When she looked up, she saw Ling Han staring at her without blinking. Why was she dressed like this on such a cold day? Aren't you cold? He questioned her with a hoarse voice. Under Ling Han's stare, Yi Huanyan felt goosebumps all over her body. Her back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. It's okay. What's wrong? Looking at her innocent eyes, Ling Han stared at her for a while. Suddenly, the corners of his lips curled up into a mysterious smile. He leaned in close to her face and said in a teasing tone, "But this is pretty good. You're wearing less." There was a tinge of viciousness in his tone, which made Yi Huanyan's thin body tremble. Her fingers, which were resting on her knees, clenched into fists. She clearly knew that he was deliberately trying to shatter her dignity as a woman. Let's go quickly. Grandma should be anxious from waiting. Yi Huanyan stuttered as she changed the topic. She met his gaze with trepidation. Ling Han's cold gaze looked into her eyes and swept past her flushed cheeks, disintegrating her heart inch by inch. She nervously held her breath, not daring to breathe or make a sound. However, he rather enjoyed this feeling. It was as if his heart would only feel better if he tortured her. Yi Huanyan, do you know? You deserve all of this. Perhaps, from the moment you entered the Ling family's house, I should have been on guard against you. At least, I should have set up my guard. Chapter 8. With a cold snort, Ling Han sat up straight again. He started the engine, turned the handle, stepped on the gas pedal, and sped away. Yi Huanyan's body jerked forward due to inertia. She gripped the armrest tightly. Her palms hurt from the friction, but it was not as deep as the pain in her heart. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of a 3-story bungalow halfway up the mountain. The Ling family's old mansion was originally an old mansion left behind by the Qing dynasty. However, Ling Han spent a lot of money to renovate it last year. Now it was a brand new pavilion. Outside, there was a secluded path with flowers and plants planted on both sides. Yi Huanyan followed behind Ling Han and passed through the cobblestone path to reach the main house. Before they got close, a servant came out to greet them. "Young master, eldest miss, you're finally here. Old madam has been waiting for you for a long time." Yi Huanyan was brought into the Ling family when she was 15 years old. Although she was not related to the Ling family by blood, she was personally promised by old madam to be the adopted daughter of the Ling family. She even almost changed her surname to Ling because of this. In the eyes of the older generation of servants, she was no different from the eldest daughter of the Ling family. Moreover, Yi Huanyan might become the young madam of the Ling family soon. "Aunt Sue, I miss you so much." Seeing the old servant, Yi Huanyan immediately ran over and hugged her neck like a happy bird. Tears filled her eyes. "Aunt Sue misses you too. Silly girl. Ever since you left the old mansion and went to live with young master, Aunt Sue has been thinking about you all the time." Gently stroking Yi Huanyan's back, the old woman looked at Ling Han, who was standing not far away with his legs straight and his suit on his arm. He seemed to have a mint candy in his mouth. His shimmering peach blossom eyes carried a hint of coldness. He stood there with a faint smile, cold to the extreme. If Yi Huanyan dared to be the second best in disguise, no one would dare to claim to be the first. Fortunately, he had completely recognized this woman and would no longer be deceived by her pure and cold appearance. "However, I think that young master will not treat you unfairly," Aunt Sue said softly. Her eyes wandered between Ling Han and Yi Huanyan, and she asked tentatively, "Really?" The smile on Yi Huanyan's face froze for a moment. At this time, Ling Han walked behind her and naturally put his hands into his trouser pockets. He said to the woman in a joking tone, "Aunt Sue, your favoritism is too obvious. Look at her white and chubby appearance. Does she look like she was mistreated by me?" He glanced at her slowly. "Not only did I not mistreat her, but I also treated her specially." The word special was clearly emphasized. Yi Huanyan had yet to recover from the words white and chubby, when Ling Han's next sentence humiliated her so much that she was unable to show her face. The subtle expressions on the two's faces were naturally reflected in the woman's eyes. She laughed awkwardly to ease the atmosphere. "That's good. That's good. Aunt Sue is still looking forward to the two of you giving birth to a big, chubby boy soon." Yi Huanyan's face paled again. She subconsciously glanced at the man beside her who was a full head taller than her. She did want to have a child, but Ling Han did not give her such a chance. Hearing this, Ling Han did not have much expression. The smile on his face did not change, but his tone gradually turned cold. "We will work hard." At this time, an old and joyful voice suddenly came from inside the room. "Huanyan, is Huanyan here? I've been waiting for you to come back. Come in, let Grandma take a look." The moment Yi Huanyan entered the room, she saw old Madame Ling sitting in the middle of the hall. She was wearing a cheongsam with a pattern of blue and white porcelain. Time did not leave a single wrinkle on her face. Instead, it was full and sparkling. "Grandma." Chapter 9. "Aya, come here quickly. Sit beside Grandma and let Grandma take a good look at you." Old Madame Ling waved her hand and beckoned her to her side. She shifted her body so that Yi Huanyan could sit beside her. "Why did you lose weight?" Old Madame Ling looked at her face carefully and suddenly pretended to be angry. Her voice turned cold and she turned to Ling Han, who had just entered. "Tell me honestly, did you bully our Huanyan?" She sounded as if Yi Huanyan was her biological granddaughter. Ling Han walked into the house lazily, and the corners of her red lips curled up. "Grandma, you're being a little biased. Why don't we do a DNA test tomorrow to see if I was picked up by the Ling family?" When he said this, it seemed unintentional, but Yi Huanyan felt that it was harsh. How could Ling Han be adopted by the Ling family? She was clearly the one who was. A chill ran down her spine. She lowered her head with a stiff face, but old Madame Ling quickly resolved the awkwardness. "You brat. What nonsense are you saying?" Old Madame Ling grabbed her hand again. "Huanyan, tell Grandma. Did that brat Ling Han bully you? If he doesn't treat you well, tell Grandma, and Grandma will stand up for you." Yi Huanyan didn't dare to say this in front of Ling Han. She was afraid that when they returned to the villa, he would think of ways to torture her again. "No, Grandma," she muttered softly. Ling Han raised his eyebrows and looked at her hesitant expression. He smiled playfully. Don't think that he didn't know what this woman was thinking. She wanted to use his grandma's favor to become the young madam of the Ling family. "Hi, Yi Huanyan, you really have a good plan." Ling Han's lazy expression, as if he was watching a good show, made old Madame Ling very dissatisfied. This grandson of hers was good at everything, but he was too fickle. She watched the entertainment news on TV almost every day, and the female celebrities who were involved in scandals with Ling Han changed almost every day. This couldn't go on. It's all right, little girl. I've already asked Aunt Sue to choose an auspicious date 3 months later. I'm going to let you and that brat get married as soon as possible. Old Madam Ling was very happy when she talked about this matter. She did not notice that after she finished speaking, the room was dead silent. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard clearly. In addition to the tranquility, there was also a cold aura overflowing from Ling Han's body. Aunt Sue, who had been standing at the side for a long time, spoke up at the right time. Exactly. The old madam even specially invited a master from outside to count the good days. Yi Huanyan didn't expect Grandma Ling to say this out loud. She glanced at Ling Han's face from the corner of her eye. The man's eyes were filled with malice. However, a wicked smile began to spread on his lips. Oh, is that so? He looked up and glanced at Yi Huanyan. There was no trace of anger on his face. He repeated the 4 words as if he was savoring the taste. Good day, auspicious. He snorted coldly and nodded unhurriedly. That's good. Thank you for your trouble, Grandma. Yi Huanyan thought that Ling Han had acquiesced to the wedding, and she slowly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. However, just as he said that's good, he took a step forward and sat on the sofa in a very casual manner. He glanced at Yi Huanyan, admiring how she pretended to be calm. He found it very interesting, but he pretended to be troubled and said to Grandma Ling, "But Grandma, you know me. I've never been able to control my lower body well. If you hand your darling to me, I'm afraid I won't be able to fulfill my duty and responsibility as a good husband." Chapter 10. Yi Huanyan clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white, and she subconsciously clenched her snow-white teeth. She knew that Ling Han would not let her off so easily, and would not agree to this marriage so easily. Old Madam Ling was annoyed, and she rolled her eyes at Ling Han. Stinky brat. What are you talking about? What do you mean by not fulfilling the duties and responsibilities of a good husband? Let me tell you, it's your fortune to marry Huanyan. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Old Madam Ling turned her head again and smiled at Yi Huanyan. Girl, don't listen to his nonsense. I know this brat the best. He's a soft-hearted guy with a hard mouth. She seemed to have found out a huge secret. She secretly moved closer to Yi Huanyan's ear and whispered, "Work harder. Get pregnant with my Ling family's offspring as soon as possible. Let's see if you can do anything to him." Although it was a whisper, Ling Han was sitting not far from old Madam Ling, so he probably heard it. Yi Huanyan awkwardly stopped old Madam Ling's topic and said gently, "Grandma, there's no need to be so anxious about me and Han. Really." She glanced at Ling Han's expression and saw that he was sitting leisurely and unrestrained, with his strong legs crossed and his leather shoes shining brightly. It was as if he was turning a deaf ear. Even if he heard it, he would probably pretend not to hear it, right? "Grandma, actually, Yi Huanyan struggled to say something, but she was a step too slow. "Grandma." Throwing the cigarette in his mouth on the ground, he extinguished it with his leather shoes. Ling Han stood up, and his clear and deep eyes swept past Yi Huanyan and landed on old Madam Ling. "Don't talk about this nonsense. Is there any food to eat? I'm hungry." This topic came to an abrupt end. The words that Yi Huanyan wanted to say were stuck in her throat, and she was flabbergasted. Old Madam Ling was speechless, but she smiled dotingly. "Stinky brat. Since I asked you and Huanyan to come back, would I starve you? The food has been prepared long ago. Let's go, let's go. Let's go to the dining room and eat." She didn't forget to say to Yi Huanyan, "Girl, come, support me." Yi Huanyan was stunned. She stood up with a slight sadness in her heart. "All right." She supported old Madam Ling. The second their fingertips touched, old Madam Ling frowned and looked at her with a pained expression. "Why is your palm so cold?" Ling Han also stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. Yi Huanyan's expression stiffened. She hesitantly retracted her hand. Maybe it's because it's cold today and I forgot to put on more clothes. How can you be so careless? What if you catch a cold? When we go back later, I'll ask Aunt Sue to get a coat for you. This cold is not good for a woman's pregnancy in the future. Grandma Ling was still rambling on. As she spoke, she supported herself with her walking stick and slowly walked along the long corridor under the guidance of the servants. Yi Huanyan only listened to a few words. It wasn't that she didn't see Ling Han's cold eyes that seemed to have been quenched in ice. From top to bottom, he sized her up as if he was admiring an object. His gaze could kill, and it was enough to kill her in seconds. And the cold smile he gave after pursing his lips made her heart ache even more. Since when did her relationship with Ling Han become like this? The meal took more than half an hour. After the meal, Yi Huanyan accompanied old Madame Ling for a walk in the garden and learned some flower arrangement skills. When they returned to Ling Han's car, it was already 4 in the afternoon. Chapter 11. Through the car window, old Madame Ling reluctantly said goodbye to them with the help of the servants. She repeatedly emphasized to Ling Han, "Brat, don't bully Huanyan. Otherwise, I'll be the first to make things difficult for you." The tall and handsome man sat in the driver's seat, his slender arms holding the steering wheel. "Grandma, I got it. If there's nothing else, we'll leave first." Go. Old Madame Ling waved her hand. Yi Huanyan exhaled and said softly, "Goodbye, Grandma. Girl, don't forget to send me a message when you get home." Old Madame Ling reminded her worriedly. Yi Huanyan nodded and wanted to say something, but Ling Han had already started the engine. He had an unrestrained look on his face and seemed to be a little impatient. He started the car and drove away quickly, blending into the thick twilight. Old Madame Ling had not retracted her gaze as she watched the car leave. Aunt Sue glanced and went forward to ask softly, "Old Madam, do you think Miss Huanyan will really find happiness with young master?" Old Madame Ling sighed. "I watched Han grow up. I know what he's thinking. I'm afraid that in this life, other than Huanyan, there's no one else in his heart." "Then why?" Uncle Sue was at a loss. "Why does young Master Han treat Miss Huanyan so mean?" However, Aunt Sue stopped herself in time. After all, she was only a servant of the Ling family and had no right to ask too many questions. "This question. I've thought about it for a long time. Han used to get along very well with Huanyan. Otherwise, she would not have thought of ways to match-make the two of them. Besides this reason, another reason was that she really wanted to have a great-grandson as soon as possible." Old Madame Ling pondered and turned to ask Aunt Sue, "When did Han and Huanyan become like this?" Aunt Sue thought for a while. "It seems since Sir and Madam passed away in a car accident." Mr. Ling, who was Ling Han's father, Ling Dongming, had 2 wives in his life. The first was Ling Han's biological mother. The second was Yi Huanyan's biological mother. The madam that Aunt Sue was referring to was the latter. In the car, the two of them were silent. Yi Huanyan looked out the window at the scenery flying past, while Ling Han focused on driving. He lit a cigarette with one hand and the expression on his face flickered. There was dead silence in the car. Ding! Yi Huanyan's phone suddenly received a message. She opened it and saw that it was a message from Ji Xiaoyi. Huanyan, don't forget about Su Nianhua's concert at Youth Square. I'll be waiting for you at the south entrance of the square." After closing her phone, Yi Huanyan quickly glanced at Ling Han. His expression didn't change. She tilted her head. "That Xiaoya has something to do with me tonight, so I won't be going home first. Just drop me off at the south entrance of Youth Square later. I'll take a taxi back tonight." Ling Han exhaled a circle of smoke and glanced at her with a sneer. "I heard that there are many small hotels next to Youth Square. Don't tell me you went to steal someone behind my back?" Yi Huanyan widened her eyes. She didn't expect Ling Han to say this. At the same time, She was speechless and felt a throbbing pain in her heart. However, was Ling Han afraid that she would steal someone? Was this a sign of jealousy? This was the first time she dared to make such a bold guess. Chapter 12. I think it's dirty. I think it's dirty. The voice kept repeating in Yi Huanyan's ears like a demon. It was like a basin of cold water that extinguished the little flame in her heart, making her feel cold all over. Stop the car. She heard her trembling voice. However, Ling Han acted as if he didn't hear it and continued to drive. Stop the car. I want to get out. She repeated again, word by word, enough to prove that she was serious. Ling Han glanced at her, his thin lips curling into a playful smile. Unexpectedly, he didn't refute her. Instead, he pulled the handbrake. With a screeching sound, the tires rubbed against the ground, creating a sharp friction sound. The car stopped at the intersection only 100 meters away from the U-square. Yi Huanyan looked down and couldn't wait to open the door. She ran out of the car as if there was a beast chasing after her. I want to see you at home before 10 in the evening. As she closed the door, Ling Han's indifferent voice came from the car. It sounded like an order. She tightened her grip on her bag and slammed the car door shut with all her might. The frosted glass window cut off the man's handsome face. He rolled down the window bit by bit and watched her cross the road. The fingers holding the cigarette trembled slightly, and then he put out the cigarette. The smoke blurred his good-looking eyes and the smile in the bottom of his eyes. On the big LED screen on the street, the female anchor was broadcasting. It is said that the popular overseas idol singer Sun Yanhua has arrived at the suburban airport in the early hours of this morning and was blocked by thousands of fans in the airport. The scene is very noisy. The image on the screen then changed to the noisy scene in the airport. Thousands of fans were shouting Sun Yanhua at the entrance of the airport. Some people were holding up signs with the word Sun Yanhua in their hands. The man in the center of the crowd had a charming face, thick eyebrows, a tall nose, and a pair of bright and clear eyes with a faint blue color. His agent and bodyguards opened the way for him on both sides. The man's long legs under his casual suit strode forward. While waving at the fans, he was welcomed all the way to the commercial car outside the airport. Ling Han, who was famous in the entertainment industry, was no stranger to the name Sun Yanhua. But this face, when he saw the face clearly, the smile on Ling Han's face froze. Then, bit by bit, it became gloomy. Sun Yanhua. It was actually him. The female host continued, and tonight is destined to be a sleepless night for us. Popular idol singer Sun Yanhua will be holding a concert at the U Square. What kind of ticket sales will it get? Let's wait and see. Youth Square. Ling Han suddenly remembered Yi Huanyan's uneasy expression when she spoke and her impatience when she got out of the car. He narrowed his long and narrow eyes and gradually tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His veins popped out. Huh. Yi Huanyan, no wonder you were so impatient. Before Yi Huanyan could reach the south entrance of the Youth Square, she was almost drowned out by the crowd. The originally cold wind seemed to have a trace of warmth amidst the enthusiastic cheers of the crowd. She couldn't help but wonder if this Sun Yanhua was so popular that so many people came here on such a cold day just to listen to him sing. Yi Huanyan wasn't someone who chased after celebrities. If it wasn't for her job at Pleasure, she probably wouldn't even be able to say the name of a celebrity. Moreover, Sun Yanhua's early days were overseas. She only heard that he was very popular and knew almost nothing about other things. Huanyan. Huanyan. Seeing her from afar, Ji Xiaoya hugged a big bucket of popcorn and squeezed through the crowd. She flatteringly apologized to the people around her. Sorry, please make way. Chapter 13. Ji Xiaoya finally managed to squeeze her way to Yi Huanyan. She held onto her arm and said, "You're still in time. Let's go, let's go. I've just exchanged my ticket." As she spoke, she didn't forget to give Yi Huanyan the popcorn in her arms. Yi Huanyan was dragged along by her as they shuttled through the crowd, almost falling several times. Xiaoya, slow down, slow down. She muttered, does this Sun Yanhua need to let you do this? Of course. Ji Xiaoya didn't slow down her pace at all as she dragged her all the way from the south square to the audience seats. The audience seats were already in a hubbub of voices. Ji Xiaoya, whose maiden heart was bursting with excitement, said, let me tell you, Sun Yanhua is the eternal prince charming in my heart. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her in amusement and didn't say anything. The concert started at around 7 o'clock. As dusk fell, the charming stage lights lit up and the commotion shook her eardrums to the point that they were about to shatter. Hello everyone. I'm Sun Yanhua. A hoarse and charming voice sounded. A young man in a casual suit slowly walked down from the stage elevator with a microphone in his hand. Aha! Sun Yanhua! Sun Yanhua! Sun Yanhua! The shouts came one after another. Sun Yanhua! We love you! The fan club continued to riot. Yi Huanyan was in a daze, thinking that this voice sounded familiar. Ji Xiaoya grabbed her wrist painfully. Prince Charming! My Prince Charming! My Prince Charming is here. I'll definitely ask him for an autograph later. It was hard to imagine that Ji Xiaoya had such a side to her, wholeheartedly crazy for a man. Under the rotating stage lights, Yi Huanyan looked deeply at her flushed face and felt a little envious for a moment. Crazy, the beautiful time she was crazy, was in high school, before she entered the Ling family. The first song I'm going to sing today is called Chasing Dreams. I believe that everyone here will have memories that are hard to forget and hard to talk about. They will be buried in the depths of our hearts forever, like a secret. Then I want to tell everyone here that if a secret is not told, it will remain a secret forever. So I wrote this song, Chasing Dreams. I hope that everyone will bravely chase after your dreams. Thank you. His voice was magnetic and gentle. It was like the warm sun in winter, warming her whole body. Following Sun Yanhua's words, there was another round of cheers, and then a beautiful piano song slowly rang out. His voice was indeed pleasant to listen to. It was extremely powerful and carried a hint of sadness. It was as if it could make people remember many things from the past. Sob sob, it's so nice. I'm so touched. Ji Xiaoya took out a tissue and wiped her tears. There were many people in the audience who sang along with Sun Yanhua. Love is boundless, and so is hate. The river is long. Girl, do you understand my feelings? Yi Huanyan silently filtered the lyrics in her heart. Her thoughts wandered in this song. Those verdant years seemed to be suddenly revived in her mind. In the depths of her memory, there was also a person who sang like this. After the concert ended, it was already close to 10 p.m. Fans rushed to the front of the stage to fight for autographs. Ji Xiaoya did not want to be left behind. She dragged Yi Huanyan and rushed into the crowd. She rolled up her sleeves and showed her big white arms. I want one too. Time, sign here. Sign here. Chapter 14. Yi Huanyan followed behind and wanted to withdraw her hand several times. Xiaoya, I want to go back. Ling Han gave her 10 o'clock, and it would be there in a while. She didn't want to go against his wishes and cause trouble again. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. Ji Xiaoya tugged at her excitedly. It would be her turn to sign soon. She couldn't give up so easily. Yi Huanyan didn't know what to say, but there were too many people coming forward to ask for autographs. She was squeezed until she almost couldn't breathe. Ji Xiaoya had let go of her hand at some point and was a few heads away from her. Yi Huanyan wanted to leave the crowd first, so she tried her best to squeeze her way out of the crowd. However, she didn't know who had elbowed her. Coupled with the fact that she was wearing high heels, she lost her balance and was knocked to the ground. It happened so suddenly that no one could react. Her arm that was scraped on the ground was stepped on by a pair of shoes. Ah, it hurt. The already noisy crowd became even more chaotic all of a sudden. Someone fell. Countless pairs of legs swayed in front of Yi Huanyan. She tried to stand up with difficulty, but someone pushed her and she fell back to the ground. The sound from the crowd traveled all the way to Su Nianhua's ears. His hand, which was focused on holding the pen, paused, and he looked at the noise in the distance. What happened? A little fan waiting for an autograph smiled and said, "Don't worry, don't worry. Youthful, youthful. Can you sign an autograph for me first? I've been waiting for a long time." Ji Xiaoya was behind her in line and tried her best to reach her big white arm over. That's right, that's right. Youthful Prince Charming, hurry up and sign an autograph for me too. There were still people behind her making a ruckus. Su Nianhua, on the other hand, frowned. His tall body was particularly conspicuous in the crowd. He stopped what he was doing, turned around, and whispered a few words to his agent. The agent stared at him in shock. Just as he was about to refute, Su Nianhua had already handed the pen in his hand to him. Then, he pushed through the crowd and walked off the stage. The autograph session after the concert was a benefit he gave to his fans. He didn't want anyone to get hurt because of it. Su Nianhua's actions caused an uproar, and more female fans rushed toward him. The manager saw that the situation wasn't right, so he quickly ordered the security. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and follow him." As a result, several security guards made way for a narrow passage in the crowd. At the end of the separated crowd was Yi Huanyan, who had fallen to the ground and was still crying out in pain. She looked at the bruise on Ziziz. She didn't notice the strange atmosphere in the audience. "Huanyan." Ji Xiaoya turned around and recognized that the person who had fallen on the ground was Yi Huanyan. But it was her calling out Huanyan that successfully made Su Nianhua stop in his tracks. He stared unblinkingly at the petite woman who was in pain. Her beautiful long hair wrapped around her palm-sized face. Even though the night lights weren't strong enough, he still felt a strong sense of familiarity. It was her. He was only stunned for a second, then his slender legs quickened his pace, and he walked up to her in a few steps. "You're hurt." A sudden warmth came from her injured wrist, accompanied by a gentle voice. Yi Huanyan looked up in shock, and her eyes met a pair of deep blue eyes. Chapter 15. Yi Huanyan's eyes widened in surprise. She had never expected this person to be. The wound can't be inflamed. It needs to be bandaged. Su Nianhua appeared to be much calmer than her. He was wearing a light blue checkered shirt, and his wrist was slightly late. Before she could react, he had already carried her in his arms in an extremely smooth and elegant manner. Wow! The Xinian fans present were shocked. The media seized this moment and picked up their cameras to take pictures. After debuting for so long, Su Nianhua could be said to have zero scandals. This was an excellent opportunity. Yi Huanyan was not used to being exposed to so many cameras. The flashes were so bright that her eyes were about to go blind. The warmth of the palm on her waist made her blush even more. She couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. "I'm fine. Put me down first." Her arms had nowhere to rest, so she could only wrap them around his neck. "Sorry, I can't promise you." He hugged her with no intention of letting go. He just strode along the small path that had been opened up and walked back. F***CK, what's going on? The Xinian fans said in unison. "This woman is too lucky, isn't she? She actually succeeded in winning the favor of our Xinian after falling down. She actually had skin-to-skin contact. How good would it be if the person who fell was me?" A lively discussion broke out, and the media swarmed over. Ji Xiaoya was stunned and stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. She lowered her head and looked at her exposed white arms, unable to say anything. Did this Yi Huanyan step on dogshit luck? She had been hoping that her Xinian would give her an autograph, but in the end, Yi Huanyan had directly hugged her Xinian. The situation was out of control for a moment. Su Nianhua's manager, Mike, scolded in exasperation. **T. Then he quickly caught up with him. "Do you know what you're doing? This was a national concert tour. So many media outlets were paying attention to it. It was also a live broadcast. Wasn't this looking for trouble? Mike, go and call the medical team. Sun Yanhua looked straight ahead, as if he didn't hear what he said. Mike, who was small and thin, could not keep up with his long legs. He was dumbfounded and left behind. What? Do we still need to call the medical team? He couldn't help but wonder. He had followed Sun Yanhua for so long, but he had never seen him put in so much effort for any woman. What was the background of the woman in Nian Yan's arms? They walked all the way to the waiting room backstage. Sun Yanhua put the woman in his arms on the sofa. Not long after, 2 doctors in white coats rushed over. They carefully disinfected and bandaged the wound on Yi Huanyan's arm. Sun Yanhua stood at the side with a worried look on his face. I said I'm fine. It's really not that serious, Yi Huanyan said softly. She only put down her sleeve after the doctor had bandaged her. The 2 doctors were very tactful. They didn't dare to ask about the relationship between the two. They only briefly explained the situation to Sun Yanhua. When Sun Yanhua nodded, the 2 of them left quietly. Yi Huanyan wanted to get down from the sofa, but a long arm stopped her and forced her back. Huanyan, it's been so many years. Do you still blame me? What? Yi Huanyan didn't seem to understand. She looked at him in confusion. You blame me for leaving without a word. Do you hate me? His passionate eyes made people feel as if they would inadvertently fall into them with just a glance. Yi Huanyan looked away and said embarrassedly, it's been so many years. If he hadn't appeared in front of her today, perhaps the past would have been completely blown away from her world like a gust of wind. She wouldn't remember the heart-wrenching pain from back then. Chapter 16. Huanyan. I came back from overseas because... He bent down, not minding the difference in status between them, and bent his long legs. His voice was as beautiful as always, hoarse and full of emotion, just like how he sang on stage. Their cold fingers touched, but Yi Huanyan retracted her hand reflexively. She avoided his gaze and stood up in a hurry. Well, it's already very late. I think I should go. Huanyan. The second they brushed past each other, Sun Yanhua grabbed onto her slender wrist, not wanting to let her go so easily. You came to my concert. Doesn't that mean everything between us still exists? Yi Huanyan was momentarily speechless. After hesitating for a long time, she said slowly, I didn't know that Sun Yanhua was you. Yes, his original name wasn't Sun Yanhua. How would she know that in the youth she had madly chased after? That boy had already become an internationally renowned singer. Then, if you had known earlier, would you still come? He asked her seriously. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a long time, then shook her head. I don't know. Maybe she would, but it should be in the name of friendship, and not anything else. It was already late at night outside the window, and she didn't dare to stay any longer. Firstly, she was afraid that Ling Han would be angry, and secondly, she was afraid of the gossip. Today was different from the past. The man in front of her was already a heavyweight in the entertainment industry. If she was too close to him, she would definitely be pushed to the top of the entertainment industry. I really have to go. Yi Huanyan tried to break free from the man's shackles, but she still stubbornly held onto his hand, not wanting to let go. After struggling for a long time, Sun Yanhua's moderately thick red lips opened slightly. I'll send you. Yi Huanyan frowned. She wanted to reject him, but his next sentence was, it's not safe to take a taxi at night. I don't feel at ease letting you go home alone. She struggled in her heart for a moment, but when she met his gaze, she finally agreed. Night fell, and there was almost no one on the streets. The journey from the youth square to the Hyde Manor was about 15 minutes. But Yi Huanyan felt that this process was very long. She looked at the watch on her wrist several times, and the hands moved bit by bit. She was nervous and uneasy, but Sun Yanhua didn't mean to speed up, so she didn't urge him. Half an hour later, the car finally reached the north gate of Hyde Manor. Just put me down here, Yi Huanyan said. Anyway, The villa was only a few steps away from the north gate. Su Nianhua couldn't help but laugh. His hands were still slowly turning the steering wheel. He tilted his head and looked at her. What? Now you don't even want to give me a chance to send you home? No. Yi Huanyan wanted to explain, but she didn't know how to explain the relationship between her and Ling Han. Of course, she was more afraid that this scene would be seen by Ling Han. She didn't want to take the risk. Su Nianhua looked relieved. I remember that every time after school, you would ask me to send you home personally. He seemed to be immersed in a distant memory. Unknowingly, 10 years have passed. Yes, how many decades can a person have in life? Oh right, I remember that your family wasn't here before. Did you move? Su Nianhua seemed to have thought of something. Yi Huanyan twisted her slender fingers and chose to lie. Yes. In fact, in the same year that he left, her mother married into the Ling family. Since then, she had met Ling Han. Which building? Building 12-1, Zone A. Chapter 17. The car stopped steadily in front of the manor-style villa. The dim yellow street lights cast a lonely shadow of the car. In the dead of night, the entire neighborhood was so quiet that only the sound of the cold wind blowing could be heard. Yi Huanyan got out of the car. Then, another figure opened the door and got out of the driver's seat. Huanyan. Su Nianhua quickly caught up with Yi Huanyan. Before she stepped on the stairs, he grabbed her wrist. I have something to say to you. What? When she turned around, she was caught off guard and pulled into his arms. Her delicate body bumped into his warm chest. Not used to this kind of touch, Yi Huanyan tried to push the person in front of her away in a fluster. However, Su Nianhua was like a sculpture. His stalwart body completely enveloped her. I returned to the country this time because of you. In the bedroom on the second floor of the luxurious villa, the lights were still on. A tall black figure stood by the curtain and took in the scene downstairs. The wine glass filled with red wine gradually showed signs of shattering in the man's well-defined fingers. Yi Huan Yan. A trace of playfulness flashed past Ling Han's low and hoarse voice, as a strange light flashed past his dark and gloomy eyes. Very good. It seemed that he was indulging her too much. After entering the villa, Yi Huanyan's entire body was submerged in darkness. Huanyan, I returned to the country this time because of you. Su Nianhua's words unconsciously echoed in her ears. Back then, my parents insisted on sending me to further my studies. My mother even threatened to commit suicide to force me to. He paused. There was a hint of sadness in his magnetic voice. Never see you again, but after so many years, I realize that I have never forgotten you in my heart. Huanyan, give me another chance. I already have the ability to protect you. I won't let you suffer any more grievances. What a heart-wrenching speech. However, 10 years had passed. They were no longer the same people they used to be, especially when her heart already belonged to another person, even though that person had never cared about her. At this point, it was already far beyond the time that Ling Han had set for her. Yi Huanyan was not sure if he would come back tonight. She could only quietly take off her high heels and walk around the entrance barefoot. She did not want to alarm anyone in the villa. Her slender fingers felt for the switch on the wall, and with a pa sound, the entire living room was instantly lit up. You still know to come back? Suddenly, a gloomy and low voice came from the sofa in the living room. This voice came too suddenly. Coupled with the murderous aura, it made Yi Huanyan's heart tremble. She turned around and looked over. A man in a white bathrobe was leaning against a black sofa with his legs crossed leisurely. He was smoking a cigar between his fingers. It was a very casual action, but it exuded a strong sense of oppression. A few maids were standing beside the sofa with their heads down. They were all familiar faces to Yi Huanyan. No one dared to make a sound at this time, but there was no lack of people who used a disgusted and resentful gaze to glare at her fiercely. Yi Huanyan's intuition told her that what was about to happen was definitely not a good thing. Was it because she did not come back at the time that Ling Han had set, so he was angry? She stood barefoot on the cold floor. For a moment, she was cold and numb. She thought of a way to explain to the man on the sofa. Something happened in the middle of a concert, so I was delayed. The sarcastic voice interrupted her words. Ling Han fiercely crushed the cigarette in his hand into the crystal jar. He raised his exquisite and sullen face. His expression looked so unfathomable. Using such a lame reason to deceive me, Yi Huanyan, you've really grown up. The man's gloomy voice shook Yi Huanyan's heart violently. Chapter 18. She suddenly widened her eyes, inadvertently revealing the nervousness in her heart. Did Ling Han know something? But even so, she had to force herself to calm down. She couldn't reveal any flaws. I don't know what you're talking about. She wanted to turn around and leave, wanting to quickly go upstairs. I'm tired, I'm going to take a shower first, but a cold and forceful voice suddenly came from behind her. Stop right there. Yi Huanyan suddenly stopped in her tracks and closed her eyes in despair. A strong sense of foreboding arose from her heart. Take off your clothes. The cold voice, without a trace of emotion, carried the man's fierce aura. The hall was dead silent. Yi Huanyan's legs almost gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. No, don't. She turned around and shook her head. Her watery eyes were filled with pleading tears as she swept her gaze over the maids who didn't dare to look up and chose to remain silent. He actually wanted her to take off her clothes in front of so many people. Was he purely doing this to humiliate her? What? Do you need me to personally help you take it off? He raised his thick eyebrows. His long and narrow eyes were as cold as ice floating on a snowy mountain. The white bathrobe was loosely worn on his lean body, and the collar was slightly open, revealing his wheat-colored skin and clearly protruding Adam's apple. Perhaps it was because he was really angry. The skin on his neck had turned red. Yi Huanyan stood there, not moving. She couldn't understand why he wanted to humiliate her like this. As his body came closer and closer, her eyes became sore and painful. I need a reason. Her eyes were sorrowful, and her voice was trembling. Her fingers, hanging by her side, helplessly tightened as she tried to resolve this awkward situation. Ling Han stood in front of her and leaned over to look at her unyielding expression. His cold fingers slowly caressed her face and then slid down to the buttons on her collar. His low voice was so soft that it seeped into her bones. Yi Huanyan, do I need a reason to want to do you? He used a bit of strength, and only a bang sound was heard. A few buttons burst open and fell to the ground. Yi Huanyan's little face was completely pale and had no expression. She could clearly feel the cold wind wantonly invading her limbs. Under his gaze, small goosebumps appeared on her naked body. And the way Ling Han looked at her was like he was admiring a product. TSK, you're still so sensitive. He suddenly smiled. His slender fingers passed through her hair and held the back of her head. He lifted her whole body and forced her nose to nose to nose to nose to nose to nose. But when he opened his mouth again, his gentle tone suddenly turned frighteningly cold. Tell me, are you also this sensitive under the body of your old lover? He looked at her condescendingly, as if he was an emperor overlooking the weak and small. Yi Huanyan's fingertips dug into her flesh, and her pale face was forced to look up. She wanted to say something, but when she opened her mouth, her throat was hoarse, as if it was blocked by something. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. You know. How could it be? Could it be that just as she feared, Ling Han saw the scene of Sun Yanhua sending her back? Yi Huanyan's heart turned cold. Don't misunderstand, I'm not here to listen to your explanation. Ling Han's eyes suddenly turned cold. He suddenly and quickly grabbed her shoulders and lifted her whole body up. He grabbed her forcefully and threw her onto the sofa. He used so much force that blood seeped out of a few of his fingers. Chapter 19. Yi Huanyan's back hit the sofa, causing her chest to tremble. For a moment, there was a roaring sound in her head, as if she was going to faint in the next second. She almost didn't see how Ling Han walked over. Only when that huge shadow covered her body did she suddenly wake up a little. She gripped the collar of her shirt that had already been ripped off, gritted her teeth, and retreated to the corner of the large sofa. "You want me to do it myself?" Ling Han's eyes seemed to have a layer of frost. He reached out and grabbed her delicate ankle. Almost like a conditioned reflex, she didn't dare to move anymore. "Han, I beg you. I beg you." She choked with sobs and looked at him in the most humble manner, intermittently releasing her survival instincts. Ling Han's cold eyes swept across her cheeks, coldly drilling into her clear eyes. She suddenly trembled, her teeth tightly biting her lower lip. Even though her heart was in pain, she didn't dare to say anything. Ling Han had always been a man of his word in this family. Other than the old madam's words, he would listen to a third of it. Elsewhere, he was a dictator who did things his own way. This tyrannical dictatorship of using the strong to bully the weak was vividly reflected in Yi Huanyan. A warm feeling swept across her cheeks, but after coming into contact with the air for a short while, the temperature dropped and turned into a cold. It fell on her chin, tottering on the verge of falling. Ling Han sized up the woman in front of him. He looked at her helpless and pitiful appearance as she begged for mercy. He looked at her sparkling tears rolling down her cheeks. He looked at her trembling because of his gaze. She was so terrified that she didn't even dare to say a word. Suddenly, his heart softened a little. She was originally a very confident and proud girl. That period of time had clearly not passed, but in his heart, it seemed like a very long time. Ling Han's expression revealed a rare trace of hesitation. Yi Huanyan quickly caught the slight change on his face, as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Her lips and teeth held back a sob. "Han, I beg you, not here." His heart had already loosened a little, but when he heard Yi Huanyan's words, he suddenly built an iron wall again. Ling Han fiercely pulled her delicate ankle to his side, practically dragging Yi Huanyan down from the corner of the sofa. She suddenly lost her center of gravity, screamed, and fell on her back in front of him. Her two legs were on either side of his waist, as if she was in an extremely embarrassing position to ask for sex with him. Just inches away, he bent down. He fiercely pinched her chin, ignoring the tears that fell on his fingers. His voice was as cold as ice. "Say it again. What are you begging me for?" Yi Huanyan's face was deathly pale, because the back of her head and back was rubbing against the sofa. The immense pain caused her little face to contort into a ball. At that moment, her chin was pinched in this man's hand, and every time she opened her mouth, it tugged at her nerves with pain. "I beg you. I beg you. At least not here." She knew that in the beginning, she had abandoned herself to climb into his bed. She was the one who had thrown away her dignity as a woman. So she didn't blame him for looking down on her. She didn't blame him for treating her like a piece of rag that could be thrown away at any time. However, she believed that after a long time, Ling Han would understand that she was sincere and didn't want to use underhanded means to get anything. If she had to say that she wanted something from the beginning to the end, she only wanted one person. Ling Han's hand that was holding her chin loosened slightly. Under the crisscrossing lights, the corners of his mouth seemed to curl into a meaningful smile. "Oh." He sized up the disheveled woman in front of him. Her pink underwear was practically exposed under the messy shirt, and her hot body seduced his gaze. His gaze suddenly became heated. "Other than here, you'll do anything I want you to do." Chapter 20. Under the immense fear. Yi Huanyan didn't have time to guess if he had ulterior motives, nor did she have the time to observe his expression. She just assumed that he was still concerned about their years of being together under the same roof. Her tears finally stopped falling. "Anything is fine. Remember, this is what you said." The huge shadow suddenly enlarged. Ling Han stood up, and under the backlight, his expression couldn't be seen clearly. She only heard him say coldly, "Follow me." Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. She crawled up from the sofa, as if she had been granted amnesty. She resisted the discomfort in her body and followed after Ling Han. The servants in the room looked at each other. Even the people who usually looked down on Yi Huanyan showed sympathetic expressions at this moment. Who would have thought that the dream lover of thousands of women, the founder of an entertainment empire, Ling Han, would treat women with such a beastly attitude? In other words, he only behaved like this when he was with Yi Huanyan. The bedroom on the second floor was spacious, but there was very little furniture. There was only a closet, a large bed, and 4 walls. The light wasn't too bright, and it was dim, creating an ambiguous atmosphere. "Come here." Ling Han sat by the bed and coldly spat out 2 words. Yi Huanyan bit her lip and slowly walked over. She walked barefoot on the floor. She didn't have time to change her shoes at the entrance, and now she still didn't. The cold floor numbed her toes and made her walk stiffly, on the verge of collapsing. Ling Han sneered. "What? I haven't even touched you, and your legs are already weak." Every time he saw Yi Huanyan's forbearing appearance, he thought of her mother. They were both lowly things who were good at pretending. Yi Huanyan didn't refute Ling Han's ridicule. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist, but she lowered her head to avoid falling into his eyes. "Kneel." She didn't need to think to know what he meant by the cold order. This wasn't the first time, and she was even a bit glad that it was only like this. After all, the so-called normal sex was exhausting for her every time. How about this? It was just a bit disgusting, and she didn't need to worry about getting pregnant. She skillfully reached out to unbuckle his belt. The CK logo slid under her fingers, leaving a trail of cold sensation. "So you're really familiar with it the first time? You're so familiar with taking off a man's pants. Don't tell me you practiced on someone else's bed?" "No." She suddenly raised her head and almost resolutely refuted. When she met those slightly stunned eyes, she instantly lowered her head in self-mockery. Anyway, in his eyes, she was a shameless woman. "What?" Ling Han was silent for a few seconds. He seemed to be a bit impatient, so he stood up and took off his pants. His lower body was completely exposed in front of Yi Huanyan. It was so huge that she didn't dare to look directly at it. He realized that Yi Huanyan was deliberately lowering her head to avoid his gaze. He playfully bent down and lifted her chin. "What are you hiding for? Aren't you begging for pleasure under it every night? Don't pretend to be a pure virgin in front of me. Let me see if you're more skilled than last time. Maybe if you serve me well, I'll see you in a new light." The huge sense of shame made Yi Huanyan's eyes even more misty. Ling Han furrowed his brows and suddenly flung her face away. He coldly spat out, "Let's begin." Yi Huanyan's face was thrown to the side by him. She suddenly felt a twisting pain in her neck. She let out a whimper, then fiercely bit the tip of her tongue to swallow the pain and humiliation mixed with traces of blood. She knew that Ling Han didn't like her being wronged and pitiful. Chapter 21. She slowly raised her hands and held onto the man's thighs. Her kneeling legs moved forward a little, and she slowly buried her head between his legs. The man's hands were originally just resting on the edge of the bed. He calmly lowered his head to look at the woman who was humbly begging for his pleasure. But at some point, his face suddenly tightened, his pupils contracted, and his hands gradually clenched. He pursed his lips as if he was enduring something. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. The woman beneath him held his scorching heat and moved in and out again. Gradually, the frequency of her movements slowed down. The man finally couldn't bear it anymore. He raised a large hand and fiercely pressed the back of the woman's head down. Yi Huanyan wasn't used to this kind of method. Her lips were small, so she could barely stuff it in. Every time it was about to reach her throat, she would quickly pull it out. Even so, she still couldn't avoid a wave of nausea. Now that she was suddenly pressed down by a large hand, the scorching heat ruthlessly pierced into the deepest part of her mouth. The salty and wet feeling filled all of her senses. Ugh. In the end, she couldn't hold it in. She turned her back and supported herself with her hands on the floor. Ling Han looked down at her from above, his lower body still standing upright, directly facing her unusually full twin peaks from a side. Her pink bra wrapped around her beauty exquisitely. Her white shirt was draped messily over her shoulders, revealing more than half of her snow-white shoulders, and her blue jeans showed her fiery figure unreservedly in front of him. The posture of her back, the twisted slender waist, and the protruding plump buttocks, all of them stirred his nerves. "You can't stand it anymore?" His voice was cold as he tried to suppress the restlessness. With a trace of ridicule, he said, "It seems like you didn't learn anything from other men." Yi Huanyan was suppressed by the tidal wave of nausea until tears fell. She didn't have time to care about his ridicule. She lowered her head and leaned on the floor. After retching for a long time, she could only spit out some saliva. Seeing that she didn't speak, Ling Han just thought that she was ignoring him. His heart was filled with anger. He reached out and lifted her up from the ground. Without any explanation, he threw her on the bed. The snow-white sheets and soft mattress made Yi Huanyan feel that if she could have a good night's sleep, it would be the happiest moment of her life. However, there was still Ling Han on her body. His cold gaze was cutting into her skin and nerves inch by inch. Her pink bra was pushed up to her chin by his rough movements. Her body was in great pain as he kneaded her. She gritted her teeth and tried her best not to make a sound. He rudely tore off all the clothes on her body and threw them under the bed like rags. He penetrated her without any foreplay. She clenched the sheets under her body. In the end, she couldn't bear the tearing pain. She let out a painful moan as he became more and more pleasurable. "Yi Huanyan, other than me, no one can satisfy you. You didn't lose out." Ling Han controlled her body, but he still didn't forget to humiliate her with words. Amidst the never-ending wave after wave of attacks, she actually slowly felt a little bit of enjoyment. The painful moans gradually changed, and the sound of ecstasy fell into Ling Han's ears, becoming more and more ear-piercing. His expression darkened, and his lower body suddenly stopped moving. He coldly looked at the blushing woman with dazed eyes. Suddenly, a wicked thought flashed through his mind, and he slowed down his movements again. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Did you enjoy it?" Chapter 22. At this moment, Yi Huanyan's body was no longer under her control. Under Ling Han's rare voice that wasn't cold, it was like a dream. Her slender waist couldn't help but twist and turn as her mouth moaned something. Ling Han sneered, slowly pushing in and then slowly withdrawing. This meticulous torture made the woman below him restless. She couldn't help but let out a moan. Her hot body pressed against the man's chest, immediately feeling a burst of comfort. Her hands couldn't help but hook around his neck, wanting to be closer to him. At first, Ling Han just couldn't stand her expression of enjoyment and wanted to torture her for a while. He didn't expect that she would suddenly take the initiative. After all, when it came to making love, he had always been the one to force her. For a moment, he forgot that he was Ling Han, and also forgot that the woman below him was inextricably linked to him. His waist moved, and he couldn't help but fiercely thrust. He comfortably let out a breath, and the woman below him raised the corner of her mouth in satisfaction. "Han," she called his name, as if she was talking in her sleep. Ling Han suddenly realized that he had forgotten his feelings. He turned his head and saw the pair of delicate arms around his neck. His face immediately turned cold, and he raised his hand to grab her wrist and fiercely threw her to the side. The snow-white arm smashed into the bedside, and her finger knocked against the corner of the bedside table. Yi Huanyan was suddenly awakened by this huge pain, and after crying out in alarm, she sucked in a cold breath. See, she held her little finger that was instantly swollen from being smashed, and those bewitching feelings disappeared in an instant. Only a pair of misty eyes remained as she asked Ling Han, why did he treat her like this? Ling Han laid on top of her and under the backlight. His expression couldn't be seen clearly. Only his voice was as cold as usual, behavior clause. If you cross the line, don't blame me for not knowing how to be tender to the fairer sex. He was the dominator. No matter in or out of bed, unless he asked for it, he would not allow Yi Huanyan to try to influence his actions. This was what she owed him. Yi Huanyan gripped her own fingers in pain. As he violently twitched halfway through his release, the moment he left, her body gradually cooled down. She was like a machine used to please him. He stood by the bed, naked. His cold gaze swept across the messy bed. You know what to do. Yi Huanyan struggled to sit up on the bed. Her long hair draped over her shoulders, and her forbearing gaze fell on him. Her fingertips touched his bathrobe. She didn't know where she got the strength from, nor did she know where she threw her shame. Put on your clothes and go. You'll catch a cold. Ling Han's gaze landed on the bathrobe beside her, and his expression stiffened slightly. After a long while, he said coldly and distantly, "No need. Keep the things that you've touched or throw them away." Not long after, the sound of running water could be heard from the master bedroom next door. Yi Huanyan looked at the bathrobe beside her, and her beautiful brows furrowed little by little. She always thought of things in a positive light. Even Ling Han's abnormal behavior tonight, which she comforted herself with, was more or less because he was jealous of Sun Yanhua. He more or less cared about her, right? Look, he didn't let so many servants take her to the shower tonight, but directly brought her to the bedroom. Tonight, he seemed to be a little gentler than yesterday. When he was doing it, there were a few moments when he smiled, right? When she thought of this, the corners of her mouth twitched, and she actually revealed a trace of a forced smile. There was still a long time before the wedding, which Grandma had mentioned. She would definitely let Ling Han see clearly that she truly loved him. Ling Han wasn't such a heartless person, but she had done something wrong in the beginning, hadn't she? Chapter 23. Yi Huanyan soaked herself in the bathtub. The temperature of the water was slightly high, and it gradually numbed the pain in her body. She rested her head on the edge of the bathtub, and her stiff limbs gradually relaxed. Ling Han wasn't such a violent person in the past. He was a very gentle man like his father. Although he didn't talk much, he was usually very attentive. He would always help her when she needed help. Although he did it secretly, there were so many people in the family, so she could guess who helped her. From the modification of the scene design of the club activities in the second year of high school, the way to solve the complicated math problems in the third year of high school, and the extra herbal tea and precautions in her bag during the art exam. Even when she was in university, she was pursued by a wretched senior, and not long after, he ran away as if he had seen a ghost. Speaking of those years, Ling Han had done countless things for her in private. She didn't think about it in detail before, but now that he had become selfish and indifferent to her, she especially missed the past. Every time she thought about it, it was vivid in her mind. When did she realize that she had fallen in love with Ling Han? Maybe it was when she found out that he was arrogant and awkward when he asked his uncle and mother to bring her flowers, but hid behind a rockery. But she caught him red-handed. Maybe it was when she fainted in the hospital after the car accident, and when she woke up with a pale face, he held her hands tightly and said, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Maybe it was because of the little things that happened every day for 10 years. Her love and admiration for him had been deeply rooted in her bones. Even if she was lowly, even if she was now like a grain of sand that couldn't enter his eyes, she still held on to that little bit of hope in her heart, waiting for the day he changed his mind. Since he was willing to let her stay by his side, it meant that he still had feelings for her. The next morning, although it was Sunday, Ling Han only had one day off a week. Since he was off on Saturday, he naturally had to go back to work on Sunday. She was the president's secretary. Since Ling Han was working, she naturally couldn't rest. The alarm on her phone rang regularly. She started work earlier than Ling Han, so the alarm only rang once before she was jolted awake. She hurriedly turned off her phone and sat on the bed in a daze for a while. Then she went to the bathroom to wash up, brush her teeth, put on makeup, and change your clothes in one go. She didn't make a lot of noise when she woke up, and she was deliberately being careful. It was all because every part of the villa was good, except for the room she was staying in, which was half of Ling Han's master bedroom. She didn't know how the construction was done, but the sound insulation was particularly bad. Even the slightest sound could be heard clearly from the other side. She was wearing a small suit jacket, a white blouse, and a black fishtail skirt. She carefully went downstairs barefoot. The servant had already prepared breakfast. When she saw Yi Huanyan coming down, she respectfully stood by the side and waited. "Miss Yi, breakfast is ready. Do you want to eat at home?" Yi Huanyan looked up at the tightly shut master bedroom door upstairs. She hesitated for a moment, then took 2 pieces of bread from the table. "I'll bring it with me." If she bumped into Ling Han while eating, who knew how many more things would happen, it was better to forget it. She put on her jacket with one hand and 2 pieces of bread with the other. She changed into her red and black high heels at the entrance and smiled at the 2 servants who were preparing breakfast. "I'm leaving." The 2 servants looked at each other. Should they say that this Miss Yi was magnanimous, or should they say that she was stupid? It seemed that no matter how the young master tortured her, she was still full of energy when she woke up. She smiled when she saw people, as if she was always full of vitality. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After leaving the villa, Yi Huanyan slowly exhaled, and her smile gradually disappeared. Her heart still palpitated when she thought about what happened last night. In front of outsiders, if you didn't put on a happy expression, then anyone could step on you. This was what Jiang Milan told her. She didn't understand it before, but now that she thought about it, it made sense. Chapter 24. On a small road in the villa area, a gust of wind blew, and Yi Huanyan shivered. She hurriedly put the bread in her mouth and put on the jacket hanging on her arm. Because of the large white handbag hanging on her other arm, the action of putting on the jacket was a lot more awkward. When Sun Yanhua saw her, it was a scene like this. She was like a monkey eating with her mouth and putting on the jacket in a flurry. One of her hands couldn't reach behind her back, and she was hopping on the spot. Anyone who saw this would want to laugh. "Yi Huanyan, are you planning to juggle in front of me this early in the morning?" Sun Yanhua's voice suddenly entered her ears, and Yi Huanyan's body stiffened. She suddenly looked up and saw him leaning against the car door, wearing a beige casual outfit and looking like he was bathing in the gentle morning sun. "You're so flustered to put on a jacket. After all these years, you haven't changed at all. You're still as careless as before." Sun Yanhua walked toward her and reached out to pull up the sleeves of her jacket to help her. The moment his hand touched her jacket, Yi Huanyan suddenly reacted from her shock and jumped to the side, as if she had been electrocuted. She took the bread in her mouth with one hand and put the handbag on the ground with the other. No, I can do it myself." The moment she spoke, she turned her body sideways. The sleeve of the jacket fell down her shoulder and was about to put on her slender arm. She looked like she couldn't avoid it and picked up the bag on the ground to leave. "I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." "You don't want to see me that much?" Sun Yanhua's voice came from behind, and anyone could hear the guilt in his voice. Yen, what happened back then was my fault, but I've been trying to break away from the control of my family all these years. I did it and I'm back. I'm back to atone for my sins to you. I think we..." "Don't say any more." Yi Huanyan stopped in her tracks, and her high heels spun on the ground. She did not dare to look at the villa, afraid that Ling Han was standing at the door or a window looking at her, and then in the next second, he would grab her and bring her back to punish her severely. Yen. Sun Yanhua did not give up. He thought that she was still unwilling to forgive him. He hurriedly walked over to her. Don't come over. Keep a distance." Yi Huanyan reached out her hand to block his path. She glanced at the second floor of the villa from the corner of her eye, but there didn't seem to be anything strange. "I'm not going. I'm not the kind of person you think I am." Sun Yanhua was a little surprised. He didn't expect that after not seeing each other for so many years, in Yi Huanyan's eyes, he would become a little hooligan who would casually touch women. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan knew that he had misunderstood. She quickly retracted her gaze and explained, "That's not what I meant. What I meant was," she looked at Su Nianhua from head to toe and rolled her eyes. "What I meant was that you are now a celebrity. If you were photographed with me, even if nothing happened, you would still be annoyed by gossip for a long time. So, let's keep a distance, okay?" Hearing this, Su Nianhua's face gradually relaxed. "It's okay. I checked before I came. The place you live in is very strict. Reporters can't enter. Are you going to work? I'll give you a ride." Hearing that he wanted to give her a ride, Yi Huanyan was so scared that her face paled a little. "No, I'll take the bus to the subway. It's very convenient, really. You live here, and you have to take the bus to the subway when you go out." Su Nianhua looked at her with a puzzled expression. The housing prices in this neighborhood were ridiculously high. Even with his current status, he had to consider if he wanted to buy a house here. Chapter 25. When it comes to environmental protection, we have to start from the bottom. Yi Huanyan blurted out these words to fool him. After thinking about it, she was afraid that he would not believe her, so she quickly said seriously, "It's rush hour now. The bus and subway are much faster than driving. Really. Let me send you. I have something to tell you." Su Nianhua did not look very good. It was as if he had not slept all night. Upon closer inspection, there were some dark circles under his eyes. Yi Huanyan was a little soft-hearted, but when she thought of Ling Han, her heart trembled for no reason. She raised her wrist to look at the time and hurriedly said, "I don't have time. I have to catch the bus. Let's talk about it next time." She turned around and left Su Nianhua behind her. To her, old love was actually a thick and colorful stroke in her youth. It was just that after turning the page, people had to enter a new world, a new circle of friends, and a new life. Until now, when she thought of the boy in the depths of her memory, she could no longer feel the pain of that time. Perhaps her heart was too fragile to bear at that time, but it did not matter now. Or perhaps the medicine of time was really effective. The scars were healed, and not a trace of a scar could be seen. Looking at Yi Huanyan's figure running away in her high heels, the loneliness in Su Nianhua's eyes was far greater than the guilt. In his memory, Yi Huanyan seemed to be the little girl who wore a suspender dress and white sneakers and chased after him, begging him to teach her how to play tennis. Her grades were terrible, her skin was thick, and she was clingy. 10 years. After all, it had been 10 years. You can't expect her to still be waiting for you in the same place as before, right? At the window on the second floor of the Ling family villa, a cold light flashed through the gap in the curtains. The man withdrew his gaze, and the corners of his mouth curved into a satisfied smile. This woman seemed to have learned her lesson. She also knew that she could not casually get too close to other men under his watch. But what if they left the villa area? What would happen? Thinking of this, Ling Han's brows furrowed. He tugged at the bow tie on his neck and impatiently walked around the room for a while. Finally, he turned around and strode downstairs. Yi Huanyan hurriedly ran to the bus stop. As soon as the bus on Route 42 left, it was facing Yi Huanyan. No matter how much she ran and shouted with a white handbag in her hand, the bus didn't stop. It turned the corner in front of her and disappeared without a trace. Su Nianhua's car slowly caught up from behind. He rolled down the window of the passenger seat and said, "The bus has left. Why don't you take my car first? I'll only send you to your workplace. Nothing will happen." Yi Huanyan frowned as she looked at the sports car in front of her. She was so conflicted that her heart was about to explode. If she sat in his car and was found out by Ling Han, she would be in big trouble. If she didn't sit in his car, she would definitely be late for the next shift. Being late meant that Ling Han would make a fuss about it, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Balance of two evils. This place was very far from the villa. Ling Han wouldn't find out, right? She looked up at the sports car with a fluke heart. Her fingers by her side were already restless. Suddenly, a cloud of dust rose from the roadside. A black MPV passed by Su Nianhua's royal blue sports car. Then there was a sharp screech of brakes. The tires rolled over the ground, leaving 2 rows of clear white marks. After the sound of the door opening, a man's voice came from the direction of the MPV. "Secretary Yi, did you miss the bus? Why don't I give you a ride?" Yi Huanyan's face paled. Her fluke just now seemed to have nowhere to hide under Ling Han's cold gaze. Ling Han was wearing a well-tailored black suit. His back was straight, his legs were long, and his shoes were shiny. This elite outfit made Su Nianhua frown deeply. Yen he, he's my boss. Since we're on the way, I won't trouble you. I'll go first." Yi Huanyan interrupted him and hurriedly ran to the MPV in front. Without saying a word, she opened the door to the front passenger seat and sat in obediently. Ling Han stood outside the car door for a few seconds. His cold gaze swept over the man wearing sunglasses in the sports car. It seemed to be the same person as the one from last night. Then, intentionally or unintentionally, he glanced at the license plate number and firmly memorized those few numbers in his heart. He gave a half-smile to Su Nianhua, then turned around and got into the car. The car was very quiet. Yi Huanyan was still holding half a piece of bread in her hand. She was afraid of dirtying the expensive leather seats, so she hurriedly wrapped it into a ball and stuffed it into her mouth. Her cheeks instantly swelled up, and it was difficult for her to move. "Not bad. You're two-faced and two-faced. If I hadn't shown up just now, would you have already gotten into his car?" Yi Huanyan's expression froze. She wanted to explain something, but her mouth was stuffed with bread, so she couldn't say anything for a moment. She could only forcefully chew and swallow. After a long time, she finally swallowed the bread, but it was choked in her throat. She had no choice but to desperately stroke her chest to catch her breath. Ling Han didn't hear her response, so he was a little annoyed. When he turned his head, he saw that her face was blue, and she looked like she couldn't breathe. He immediately widened his eyes and growled, "What are you doing?" She lowered her head for a long time before a word came out from between her lips. "Water." Ling Han held the steering wheel with one hand and opened the storage compartment between the 2 seats with the other. He took out a bottle of water that he had already unscrewed and taken a sip from and handed it over. Yi Huanyan gulped down a few mouthfuls and finally swallowed the lump of bread that was stuck in her throat. She took a deep breath and then burped. "You." Ling Han was speechless. A woman who could put her life in danger just by drinking water was probably rare in this world. Yi Huanyan thought that he was disgusted, that her burping was polluting the air in the car. She hurriedly found the window control button and opened the front passenger window to ventilate it. The weather at the end of summer and the beginning of autumn always caught people off guard. Now that she had just opened the car door, the cold wind blew in her face. Yi Huanyan instantly sneezed a few times in a row. Ling Han's brows furrowed slightly as he said coldly, "You want to freeze me to death so that you can be with that kid as soon as possible, right?" Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and awkwardly closed the window. Her body gradually warmed up. "You're so stupid that I have nothing to say." Ling Han didn't look at her and only left her a cold sentence. Then he didn't speak again for the rest of the journey. Yi Huanyan slightly adjusted her sitting position and leaned against the leather seat. She was lost in thought as she looked out the window. At first, she was a little afraid that Ling Han would say something sarcastic, but after a while, he didn't do anything. Gradually, sleepiness overwhelmed her and she fell asleep. It had been a long time since she and Ling Han had interacted in the same space peacefully like this. It was as if ever since that incident, he would get angry whenever he saw her. He started to hate her for no reason. No matter what she did, it was wrong. No matter what she did, it was wrong. There was a light snoring sound beside him. Ling Han couldn't help but glance at her from the corner of his eyes. Her little mouth was slightly pouted as she muttered in her sleep. The sound of wind blowing through the car window could be heard intermittently. Big brother Ling Han. Ling Han's expression froze. It seemed that he hadn't heard her call him that in a long time. Chapter 26. The name Brother Ling Han could be traced back to 10 years ago. At that time, Ling Han's biological mother, Wen Qingwan, had already passed away for more than half a year. His father's new wife, Jiang Milan, married into the Ling family with Yi Huanyan. There was nothing to criticize about all of this. That year, he had just returned from abroad because his mother was seriously ill and gradually took over the family's company. His mother had already bought a few properties for him outside, so he didn't need to live with them day and night. He wasn't interested in Jiang Milan's character, and he didn't care about the daughter he brought with him. Overall, he didn't have any opinion about his father's private life. The only interaction he had with Yi Huanyan in the first year was that they would go to the old mansion every Saturday and Sunday to have a meal together. The father was kind, the son was filial, the brother was friendly, and the sister was respectful. No matter what, he had to put on a face that made the old lady happy. When his father introduced Jiang Milan and Yi Huanyan to him for the first time, he had just finished a project in the company. He had some small achievements and was in a good mood. When he saw the pure girl standing beside Jiang Milan, who was completely different from this woman's temperament, there seemed to be something strange in his heart. Ling Han, this is your Aunt Jiang's daughter, Yi Huanyan. She will be your sister in the future. You have to take care of her. Hurry up and call me brother. He hasn't agreed yet. It's not good for me to call him that, right? This was what Yi Huanyan said at that time while twisting the corner of her school uniform jacket. It was also the first sentence he heard her say. Her voice was sweet and tender. Ling Han's father laughed. His laughter was so hearty that Ling Han rarely saw it since he was young. He was secretly a little surprised. He was also amused by Yi Huanyan's sensible look. Ling Han, don't mind her. This daughter of mine has been shy since she was young. A few days after Jiang Milan's words, it was Saturday again. Ling Han drove to the old madam's house for dinner. As soon as he entered, he was frightened by a white glutinous rice ball that fell from the sky from the persimmon tree at the entrance. Yi Huanyan patted her, and stood up from the ground. When she saw him, she was stunned. She opened her hand and handed him a huge persimmon. The orange-red persimmon in her hand was sparkling like a piece of jade. Do you want to eat? This is the biggest one. Blood slowly returned to his pale face, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. There was a hint of playfulness in his gentle voice. I'm not called that. Over the course of the next year, their interactions gradually increased. For some reason, Yi Huanyan became a little tail that chased after him. Every day, she would call him Big Brother Ling Han, Big Brother Ling Han. He lived alone in a detached house, and she always had a reason to come and bother him. Often she would come in from work to find the smell of food in the house, and he wondered how she knew the combination on his door. You made it. I made the cucumber slices. The rest were made by my mother and auntie. I was afraid that you wouldn't want to go if I called you, so I brought some for you. Come and eat, Big Brother Ling Han. The food is getting cold. After eating 2 mouthfuls, he noticed that she was swallowing her saliva. Have you eaten? She shook her head, and there was a hint of expectation in her eyes. I was afraid the food would get cold. I came in a hurry and haven't eaten yet. Then you should hurry home and eat. He threw out a sentence that was neither salty nor light, completely devoid of humanity. Ling Han left home when he was in his teens. After living alone for so many years, it was difficult for him to say anything to warm people's hearts. But when he saw Yi Huanyan walk to the door with a frosty expression, he suddenly felt pity for her. You don't have to send it over tomorrow. It's not far away. You can come back after a meal. Thus, Ling Han, who hadn't enjoyed the love of a father and son at home for so many years, was able to be a filial son for a few years thanks to Yi Huanyan. Although he wasn't close to his father, it wasn't like before where they had nothing to talk about except work. Later, he got used to eating at home. Occasionally, When there was a thunderstorm, he would stay at home for a night. When he had nothing to do, he would flip through her notes and exercise books. She was full of mistakes and couldn't even do simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. He helped her make the correct notes and even proudly left a note. If others knew that you were my sister, I would find it embarrassing. But how did it become like this? Suddenly, there was the sound of a car horn behind them. The noise woke the sleeping woman in the front passenger seat. She looked out of the window in a daze. Are we there yet? Ling Han instantly returned to his cold self. Why? Do you want me to send you to the entrance of the company to let others know that you have someone backing you? Yi Huanyan's face stiffened. That's not what I meant. Then get out of the car. Be at the office in 5 minutes. If you're 1 second late, you'll have to bear the consequences. Ling Han's command was like a soul-stealing existence. Yi Huanyan reflexively opened the door without hesitation and got out of the car without a second of hesitation. She ran in the direction of the company in her high heels. Ling Han drove to the company, so he had to park in the underground parking lot. It would probably take more than 5 minutes to get up the elevator to the office. Yi Huanyan looked at her watch and counted the seconds until the traffic light turned green. The moment the light turned green, she shot out like an arrow from a bow, causing the old lady, who had just bought groceries, to look surprised. She arrived at the office in 6 minutes and 17 seconds. Xiao Wang from the finance department was standing in the secretary's office with a stack of documents. She turned around and saw her. Hey, Secretary Yi, you're here. Just in time to help me send this to President Ling to sign. Put it on my desk first. After saying this, Yi Huanyan brushed past her like she was flying. The president's office opened and closed. Other than Xiao Mu, who was changing water from the water dispenser, there was no one else inside. Ling Han's seat was also empty. It was obvious that he had not arrived yet. Yi Huanyan breathed a sigh of relief and walked to the water dispenser with a dry mouth. Thank goodness, Xiao Mu did not ask her what she was lucky about. It was not the first time she ran here in such a hurry. She poured a glass of water and handed it to Yi Huanyan. I just changed it, so it's not hot yet. Drink some. Thank you. She gulped down the large glass of cold water. You're welcome. That news. Before Xiao Mu could finish speaking, a voice from the door of the president's office interrupted her. President Ling, you're here. The finance department's quarterly report needs your review and signature. You showed it to Secretary Yi? Ling Han's tone was cold and indifferent. The company's contract documents were all given to Yi Huanyan to review before they were passed to Ling Han. She had to make notes on the important parts to improve work efficiency. This was the company's rule. Well, I wanted to give it to her just now, but she ignored me. After all, it's in front of you. She's so busy that she even walks with the wind. How could she have time to care about our trivial matters? She could only run around by herself. The door of the president's office was not closed, so these words fell into Yi Huanyan's ears without missing a word. She frowned and threw the paper cup in her hand into the trash can. Under Xiao Mu's awkward gaze, she stomped toward the door in her high heels. She was not deaf. She should at least talk behind people's backs. Chapter 27. Yi Huanyan opened the door and stood behind Xiao Wang. Her voice was cold and clear. Xiao Wang, I remember that this is the second time you're here. The first time, the data was wrong, so I asked you to take it back and change it. It was supposed to be delivered on Friday night, but today is Sunday. If it weren't for this, would you volunteer to work overtime? Xiao Wang from the finance department was extremely careless and had an unclear relationship with the deputy director of the finance department. Everyone in the company knew that if she hadn't discovered the data early and sent it to Ling Han, who knew how many people would be implicated and how angry he would be. Xiao Wang didn't know how to thank her for giving her time in private, but now she was accusing her. It was intolerable. Secretary, I didn't mean that. Didn't I change it and send it over? Xiao Wang didn't dare to talk nonsense in front of Ling Han. She was so scared that her face turned green. She only hated herself for not closing the office door tightly. Yi Huanyan looked at her coldly. Just as she was about to say something, Ling Han suddenly spoke. You were supposed to finish the data on Friday. Why did you delay it until Sunday? There seemed to be a reproach in his words. A trace of disbelief flashed across Yi Huanyan's face. Ling Han had never helped her in the company. Whenever there was a problem, she would be the first to be blamed. This was why she was so anxious to explain. Xiao Wang was so scared that her face turned pale. She stammered for a long time. My godmother was hospitalized for appendicitis on Friday. I didn't have time to. This kind of lame excuse was obviously fake. If something really happened at home, you could take the hospital certificate and apply for leave. The company would give you a paid leave. Xiao Wang was an opportunistic and lazy person. How could he not apply for leave if he was involved in such a thing? Yi Huanyan's lips curled into a mocking smile. Did she think that Ling Han was stupid? Ling Han hated it when people tried to play tricks in front of him. Oh, you should apply for leave if there's a problem at home. How about this? Go to the finance department and get a 5,000 yuan allowance. Then tell the human resources department to apply for a week's leave to take care of your godmother. Xiao Wang was in disbelief. President Ling, you must be joking. I am fine. I can still go to work. Yi Huanyan's expression changed little by little. She looked at Ling Han, her fingertips trembling slightly. Go ahead. As for Secretary Yi, he didn't figure out the schedule for the handover of the various departments, which led to a decrease in work efficiency. This quarter's financial report review was delayed, so this month's bonus will be deducted. It was as if Xiao Wang had seen something as rare as a comet crashing into the earth. When he heard this, his pale face froze and his cheeks twitched. He glanced at Yi Huanyan and tried to explain, President Ling, this doesn't seem to be Secretary Ye's fault. It's me, what? If you don't blame her, do you want me to blame you? Ling Han's voice was like a ghost in the corridor between the president's office and the secretary's office. It was so cold that it made people's hair stand on end. Xiao Wang shuddered for no reason and hurriedly said, Thank you, President Ling. I'll put the documents in Secretary Ye's office first. I'll go to the finance department. Yi Huanyan was powerless to stop Ling Han's unreasonable behavior and watch Xiao Wang leave. After all, this was a company matter. Ling Han had gone too far this time. Following him into the office, Yi Huanyan clenched his fists and said to Ling Han's back in a trembling voice, If it's because you're dissatisfied with me, you can just say it. Why do you have to mix it up with work? Do you know that if Xiao Wang returns to the finance department, she will be dissatisfied with you? Ling Han snorted and interrupted Yi Huanyan. He slowly sat down behind his desk. The spacious leather sofa trembled slightly and fixed itself at an angle that was enough for him to speak to Yi Huanyan. Who gave you so much face? Qiao Mu tactfully left the office and closed the door tightly on her way out. Yi Huanyan retracted her gaze from a corner of her eye to Ling Han's desk and explained in a low voice, I don't think I did anything wrong. I was completely following the company's rules. Xiao Wang, I told you to be in the office within 5 minutes. Did you do it? Yi Huanyan's face showed a trace of astonishment. You violated my orders during working hours. When you started working as a secretary, did your predecessor tell you that this was also a part of the company's rules? A voice in her heart asked, Did they? She thought for a long time. She only remembered that the previous secretary left with a big box and did not say anything. If they didn't, then I'll tell you now. Ling Han seemed to know what she was thinking. His eyes turned cold as if a knife had pierced into Yi Huanyan's body. But I arrived before you did. Did I tell you to arrive before me? Ling Han's voice became deeper. You really know how to take advantage of loopholes. You think you can do whatever you want because I'm not here. He could always escalate a small matter to the level of destroying the world. Yi Huanyan originally wanted to defend herself. She opened her mouth, but in the end, She lowered her head and made up her mind to remain silent. The more she said, the more mistakes she made. She really did not know how she had provoked him just now. Repeat the order I gave you. She did not speak, but Ling Han just had to make her speak. Yi Huanyan slightly raised her head. Her fine bangs blocked some of her vision. She hesitated for a moment and maintained this angle without moving. Her originally sweet voice had a trace of trembling hoarseness. Arrive at the office within 5 minutes. What else? She furrowed her brows. If you're 1 second late, you'll have to bear the consequences. This consequence made her a bit flustered. As she spoke, she grabbed the hem of her suit jacket and trembled slightly. Ling Han looked at her playfully. Why? Are you unwilling? No. No, she gritted her teeth and did not dare to show a trace of resistance. Because this was his territory. She knew that if she dared to go against his wishes, she would be torn apart, humiliated, and trampled on. This office was like his playground. He could use it to enjoy the pleasure of humiliating her. Thinking of this, the pain of nausea last night surged into her heart again. She frowned fiercely and bit the tip of her tongue with her pearly white teeth, fiercely suppressing the nausea. Ling Han glanced at her. What are you standing here for? Why aren't you doing your own thing? Do you want me to help you check the data? She was stunned. She was confused by this sentence that came out of nowhere. Huh. What else did you think it was? Ling Han raised his eyebrows and looked at her. There was a playful smile on his face. Or do you think that a month's bonus is too light for you? How about we change to another way? No, it's fine. I'll go check the report. As if she had been granted amnesty, Yi Huanyan's escape speed could be said to be superb. After you're done, make a cup of coffee and send it in. A faint voice sounded behind her. Chapter 28. After Yi Huanyan left, Xiao Mu came back with the planning department's proposal. Director Ling, this is the proposal for the next 6 months. The planning department has revised it according to your request at the meeting last time. If there are no problems, please sign it, and they will follow this direction in the future. MHM, you've read it, right? Is there a problem? No problem. Please read it again. Ling Han directly flipped to the last page and signed his name. It's fine as long as you see it. Give it to them. He had personally promoted Xiao Mu when he first entered the company. If he could not trust her at this point, then no one around him could be trusted. It's done. Ling Han closed the signed contract and held the bottom of the black folder with one hand. He handed it to Xiao Mu, who was across the desk from him. Give it to them. Xiao Mu took it with a hesitant expression, looking like she wanted to say something but stopped. Director Ling, did you see today's news? Ling Han was slightly taken aback. This was the first time he heard Xiao Mu ask such a question. What? He did not like to read the news on his phone. Every day, Yi Huanyan would organize the newspaper and send it in. He glanced at the place where the newspaper was usually placed and frowned. His tone turned cold. Yi Huanyan doesn't want her job anymore. When you leave, remind her not to forget her original job. A strange look flashed across Xiao Mu's face, but she did not dare to say anything else. He had been with Ling Han for so long, so he had some understanding of the relationship between Ling Han and Yi Huanyan. Ling Han's attitude toward Yi Huanyan was sometimes cold and sometimes warm, which was hard to fathom. He always spoke coldly in front of others, but secretly took care of her behind their backs. He did not know how much he knew about today's matter. Xiao Mu was conflicted, but in the end, he still silently left with the folder. Whether Ling Han knew about the news or not, it had nothing to do with him. He had better not walk into the muzzle of the gun. When he walked past the secretary's office, he reminded Yi Huanyan to submit the day's entertainment and finance news to the office. Yi Huanyan looked like she had fainted from being so busy. She slapped her head and her face turned pale. I really forgot. He didn't say anything, right? Xiao Mu's lips curved into a comforting smile. She didn't say anything. She just wanted me to remind you that Director Ling is in a good mood today, so quickly send it in. Yi Huanyan hurriedly nodded. She picked up a stack of newspapers from the sofa and walked out of the secretary's office. When she reached the door of the president's office, she suddenly remembered something. She turned around and made a cup of coffee in the pantry. She added 2 cups of milk instead of sugar. Then, she knocked on the door with the newspaper in one hand and the coffee in the other. Come in. President Ling, here's your coffee and today's newspaper. Yes. Ling Han did not even raise his head. He was scribbling something on the pure white paper with a Parker fountain pen in his hand. Yi Huanyan placed the coffee by his hand and the newspaper on the newspaper rack that was within easy reach on the other side of him. Then, she bowed slightly to him in front of the desk and turned to walk toward the door. The moment she turned around, Ling Han raised his head. His eyes swept across the steaming hot coffee. The rich color and fragrant aroma were familiar to him. He picked up the newspaper on the side and threw the entertainment news aside. He directly flipped to the finance news, preparing to check the stock market, although he owned an entertainment company. He had no interest in gossip news at all. Those side stories were not a big deal. If there was important information, his subordinates would report it to him. The company's public relations and publicity department would take care of these things properly. He only needed to consider the annual plan sent by the planning department or the financial report sent by the finance department. His indifferent attitude toward entertainment matters made it so that among the countless artists in his company, there were very few that he could call out by name. At this time, he only glanced at the front cover of the entertainment news from the corner of his eyes. He quickly returned to the red and green line of the finance news. He paused for a short 2 seconds, then slowly raised his head and looked at the colorful entertainment news. The news of the day, breaking news. Su Nianhua hugs mysterious woman in concert. Scheming woman is actually entertainment tycoon's little honey. Although this news did not name the woman, Ling Han would recognize her even if she turned into ashes. Yi Huanyan, you're very capable. The corners of the newspaper were tightly gripped by the bony fingers. Then it crumpled into a ball and was heartlessly thrown into the trash can. The portrait on the newspaper seemed to be unwilling to be thrown away like this. It slowly spread out, revealing a wrinkled and distorted face. For the whole morning, Ling Han did not look for trouble with Yi Huanyan, which was out of the ordinary. Until the afternoon, Sheng Anren, a frequent guest of the president's office and the popular star of the pleasure group, swayed her flirtatious little, but passed the secretary's office. Her brown curly hair was gathered on one side of her shoulder. Her fingers covered with bright red nail polish lightly clasped the glass door of the secretary's office. Her makeup was exquisite, as if even the tone and pause of her speech were deliberately rehearsed. Secretary Yi, is your President Ling here? Yi Huanyan was still a little surprised. This woman, who usually never said hello to her and directly went in and out of the office, was actually able to see her today. Miss Sheng came at a bad time. President Ling just went downstairs for a meeting. It will probably take half an hour for him to come out. It doesn't matter. I'll wait here. Sheng Anren walked into her secretary's office in knee-high boots of 12 centimeters. The big red cloak coat was particularly dazzling. Inside was a white mid-sleeve knitted shirt, revealing a snow-white wrist. She wore the latest Cartier bracelet on her wrist, and the middle finger of both hands also wore the ring she endorsed. She looked like a jewel. As soon as she entered the door, the whole secretary's office was filled with her strong perfume. Miss Sheng can wait in the president's office. I don't have enough heating here, and the ventilation is not as good as the president's office. In late autumn, it gradually began to cool down, and the whole building began to heat up. However, Yi Huanyan was always afraid of going home at night to catch a cold, so the temperature in her office was always not much different from that of the outside. Sheng Anren sat on the sofa unceremoniously, just like a hostess. Don't worry. I don't think Secretary Yi is very busy. Let's talk for a while. Yi Huanyan was somewhat disgusted with Shang Anren. Everyone knew that Shang Anren was determined to marry Ling Han, and she could come in and out of the president's office freely. Not only did Ling Han mention her in the constant gossip outside, but the whole company also regarded her as the future Mrs. Ling. Her hostess posture was also held by these people for too long. Miss Shang, please help yourself. I still have something to deal with, so I can't entertain you. Yi Huanyan smiled faintly and took back his eyes from her. Chapter 29. Shang Anren sat on the sofa with her knee-high boots folded together. She was still slender. If Yi Huanyan were a man, he would not be able to look away at the moment. She looked at Yi Huanyan and asked curiously, "Does Secretary Yi have a boyfriend?" Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Yi Huanyan's face. "Miss Shang, I don't think we are familiar enough to talk about this." Shang Anren was not angry. She raised her plump lips and showed a meaningful smile. "I used to doubt it, but now I'm relieved. It turns out that you and Su Nianhua are old acquaintances." Hearing the three words Su Nianhua, Yi Huanyan's face changed and looked at Shang Anren stiffly. How did she know? Seeing her surprised look, Shang Anren raised her hand to tidy up the hair on her temples. Secretary Yi usually keeps a low profile and is not very close to the people in the company. I thought you and Ling Han. Forget it. Since you have someone in your heart, I will also bless you. You can be considered to have climbed a high branch. Yi Huanyan's eyebrows gradually furrowed when she saw that Su Qinshuan was not telling the truth. Miss Shang, it's better to make clear. There was a noise at the elevator entrance. It sounded like the end of the board meeting. Ling Han and his assistant Xiao Mu came back. Shang Anren's expression changed. She stood up from the sofa and threw Yi Huanyan an ambiguous look. What, don't you watch the news? When Ling Han came back, he saw Shang Anren coming out of the secretary's office. The bright red color suddenly entered his eyes, and the strong smell of perfume made him frown imperceptibly. Ling Han, you finally finished the meeting. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Ling Han's cold eyes looked through the glass door of the secretary's office. He saw Yi Huanyan standing behind her desk in a daze, and their eyes met. His eyes suddenly tightened as he looked at Shang Anren and said unhappily, "How did you get out of there?" Shang Anren's originally joyful expression froze on his face. He was slightly stunned and said carefully, I saw that you weren't here, so I said a few words to Secretary Yi." Ling Han did not listen carefully to her explanation. His eyes were fixed on the secretary's office, on the concise and capable figure. After only one sentence, Yi Huanyan sat down and continued working on her computer, as if what happened here had nothing to do with her. A trace of coldness flashed through Ling Han's eyes. He retracted his gaze and brushed his fingers across Shang Anren's delicate face. He tucked the strands of hair on her temples behind her ear and said in a deep voice, "In the future, just come to my office directly. The air elsewhere is not good." Shang Anren was almost overjoyed. Ling Han was rarely so gentle to her. She boldly held Ling Han's arm and said, "You care about me so much. Of course, I have to think about you. I'm afraid that the people below will gossip." Ling Han didn't refuse. He glanced at the secretary's office and said, "Secretary Yi, you don't know how to prepare tea and snacks when the guests come. Do you think that this month's bonus is not deducted enough?" Yi Huanyan's face froze, and he stood up from his seat. "I'll prepare now." Looking at the back of both of them, Yi Huanyan's heart was numb. There were many women around Ling Han. Shang Anren was the most patient and ambitious one for a long time. She had a way to make Ling Han not be tired of her so quickly among the thousands of women. She also had the ability to use the identity of Mrs. Ling to sweep away those mistresses, with great fanfare in the state of not even having a status. Her heart towards Ling Han could be considered to be praiseworthy and sad. She should thank her for helping him solve so many mistresses. It was time to prepare tea and snacks for her. A faint sneer appeared at the corner of Yi Huanyan's mouth. She had always been the best at glossing over peace. Such a little thing was not shameful for her. When the tea and snacks were sent in, Sheng Anren sat on the sofa and snuggled up in Ling Han's arms. Seeing that Yi Huanyan had delivered the snacks, she picked up a piece of macaron with her slender fingers and sent it to Ling Han's mouth. "I'm on a diet. I can't eat these things. Han, will you help me eat it?" Yi Huanyan knew Ling Han's misophobia better than anyone else. Not to mention the things that others held with their bare hands. Even if you wrapped it with a paper towel for him at this moment, he might not be willing to eat it. Sure enough, Yi Huanyan found a trace of displeasure on his face. Sheng Anren was so complacent. In Yi Huanyan's expectation, Ling Han pushed her away from his arms and returned to his office chair with no expression on his face. In the face of Yi Huanyan's presence, Sheng Anren was a little embarrassed and said, "This macaron is too sweet at first sight. I know a shop that makes very good Western desserts. Let's eat together next time?" Yi Huanyan had a sly smile in her eyes and turned to walk out of the office. After Yi Huanyan left, Ling Han's response to Sheng Anren's hospitality became very perfunctory. He said, lightly, and didn't say anything else. After a long while, seeing that Sheng Anren was still here, he frowned and looked up. "If you are busy, you don't have to accompany me here." "I'm not busy today." "I'm very busy." Ling's eyes drifted from behind the desk. The eviction order was obvious. Sheng Anren was not a person who didn't know how to behave properly. She couldn't pester him any more. "Then I won't bother you. My agent is going to take me to talk about the contract tonight. The new play is about to start shooting." Well, Sheng Anren's ability to judge the situation is an important factor for her to stay with Ling Han for a long time. All men hope that the women around them know how to advance and retreat and know how to behave properly. Because of this, when she does some small actions behind her back, he can also turn a blind eye. As long as her existence can make someone feel like sitting on pins and needles, that's enough. Ling Han lowered his head and smelled the still strong perfume on his body. He impatiently took off his coat and threw it in the trash can, just covering the crumpled entertainment newspaper. Yi Huanyan was enlightened by Sheng Anren. She turned on her mobile phone to check the news of the day. After clicking on the top 3 hot searches, she was soft all over and slumped in the office chair. The mysterious scheming woman fainted in the concert and attracted the attention of Su Nianhua. The scheming woman's office location was exposed. She was the entertainment tycoon's personal little honey. In order to climb up the social ladder, she failed to hook up with her boss and turned to Su Nianhua. Although the attached graphics were pixelated, Yi Huanyan could still recognize that it was herself. In Su Nianhua's concert, a video was even recorded, and now it has been forwarded more than 10 million times. There was a lot of abuse from fans, and even some people found her workplace on Weibo according to the concert photos posted by their friend Ji Xiaoye. Yi Huanyan glanced at the position of Ji Xiaoye diagonally opposite her. It was empty. She was on duty today and didn't come to work. She didn't have to think about it to know that she played too late last night. She was afraid that she would have to sleep at home all day to recover. No wonder today, when she passed by the office area outside the president's office, she always felt that there was a strange look on her body that she couldn't get rid of. Thinking of what those fans might do, she was a little flustered. Chapter 30. When Yi Huanyan was sitting on pins and needles, Sheng Anren had just come out of the president's office and passed by the secretary's office. At a glance, she saw Yi Huanyan sitting in her seat in a daze. Her laptop screen was tilted to the door of the secretary's office, and the content of the search was reflected in Sheng Anren's eyes. "Secretary Yi, as an experienced person, I still have to remind you that the craziness of fans is far beyond your imagination. Be more careful when you get off work." When she looked at Yi Huanyan, there was sympathy on her face. Even if she was an old acquaintance of Su Nianhua, so what? It was a pity that she was an outsider. It was bad for her to be entangled in scandals. Yi Huanyan came to her senses and closed her laptop with a snap. She frowned and looked at the coquettish woman at the door of the secretary's office. Her tone was not kind. I don't seem to be familiar with Miss Sheng, so Miss Sheng doesn't need to care so much about my private life, right? Sheng Anren's face froze. She just watched a good show and kindly reminded her, by the way. She didn't expect that she was so ungrateful, and she suddenly became angry out of shame. What's with your attitude? Do you think you are a popular person in front of Ling Han? Believe it or not, as long as I say a word, you can lose your job. Yi Huanyan didn't blink and stared at her coldly. Please help yourself. The people in the company didn't know what Sheng Anren was in front of Ling Han, but Yi Huanyan knew very well. She was just acting. If one day she really dared to tell the company's affairs, Ling Han wouldn't be far from being tired of her. The approaching footsteps in the office outside made Sheng Anren suppress her uncontrollable anger again. Qiao Mu's voice rang in the office. Sheng Anren was still wary of the people around Ling Han after all. She unwillingly stomped her feet, and her 12-centimeter boots made an angry clashing sound as they hit the wooden floor. Secretary Yi, we'll see. Looking at the back of Sheng Anren leaving in high heels with anger, Yi Huanyan didn't have a feeling of exultation. She even regretted that she couldn't help speaking without thinking for a while. She didn't know how much trouble she would cause in the future. The trouble in front of her was enough to make her suffer. Qiao Mu brushed past Sheng Anren and nodded as a greeting. When she passed by the secretary's office, she glanced at Yi Huanyan worriedly. She seemed to have something on her mind and did not notice anything. What was written in the newspapers was not very clear, but the fans' ability to find out was beyond imagination. Following the Weibo post that Ji Xiaoya posted on the night of the concert, they immediately identified Yi Huanyan. He had just come from the office and heard a lot of gossip. Last night at Su Nianhua's concert, that mysterious woman seemed to be Secretary Yi. I've seen Secretary Ye's clothes before. Is Secretary Yi an old acquaintance of Su Nianhua's? What? It's probably the news that many people in the media posted. I think it's just an accident, but Secretary Yi ended up being targeted by fans. Qiao Mu originally wanted to comfort Yi Huanyan, but when she walked to the door, she found that she couldn't find anything to say. After standing there for a few seconds, Yi Huanyan noticed her and looked at her in confusion. Assistant Qiao, what's the matter? Qiao Mu was slightly taken aback. Oh, it's nothing. It's almost time to get off work. I don't have anything to do today, so you should leave early. Yi Huanyan forced a smile. It's good enough that I don't have to work overtime. How can I leave early? Qiao Mu didn't know what to say. She smiled embarrassedly and turned to enter the president's office. When she saw the expensive suit jacket in the trash can, Qiao Mu was stunned for a moment and seemed to understand something. This is the minutes of the morning meeting. I need your signature. Okay. Do I need to inform all the media companies about the news about Secretary Yi and Su Nianhua? Qiao Mu asked cautiously. Ling Han frowned, and a layer of frost covered his eyes. No need. I think this matter is quite big, and many people in the company know about it. I don't know if Su Nianhua's fans will do anything extreme. Qiao Mu reminded him in a low voice. Tell the security department to pay more attention to suspicious people in the next 2 days. Those without access cards are not allowed to enter the company. There was no warmth in Ling Han's voice. Then, outside the company, she brought it upon herself. Ling Han cast a sidelong glance at Qiao Mu. When did you become so close to Yi Huanyan? Ling Han's words scared Qiao Mu into breaking out in a cold sweat. I'm just worried about the safety of the other employees in the company. All right, go out. You don't have to tell me everything. Hearing this, Qiao Mu did not dare to say anything more. She could only sigh silently and quickly leave with the signed document. The boss seemed to be in a bad mood today. Not only was his tone impatient, but the trash can, which was almost empty normally, was filled with waste paper today. It was obvious that the boss was in a bad mood. except for the technical staff and security staff who had to work overtime that day. Most of the employees of the pleasure group got off work at 5:00 sharp. Yi Huanyan was no exception. Before she got off work, she took a look at the news again. The top 3 trending topics were still about her and Su Nianhua. At this moment, she began to regret not asking for Su Nianhua's number. At least she could ask him about this matter. Just as she walked out of the company, her phone rang from her pocket. On the other end of the phone, Ji Xiaoya's voice was like a clap of thunder, exploding her ears. I just woke up. Oh my God, what happened? You're on the trending topics. You're going to be famous. I don't know if I'm going to be famous or not. I only know that those fans found me through your Weibo. Yi Huanyan sighed. Have pity on me. Hurry up and delete your Weibo. On the other end, Ji Xiaoya still acted like she did not know how serious the situation was. Delete what? Maybe if I seize this opportunity, my idol will personally receive you. That way, I can also bask in the glory. Ji Xiaoya. What's wrong? On the other end of the phone, Ji Xiaoya only heard scream, followed by chaos. At this moment, several women wearing masks appeared out of nowhere at the entrance of the pleasure and pleasure group. They were holding rotten eggs and tomatoes in their hands, which they threw at Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan's scream just now was because her back was hit by a rotten tomato that fell from the sky. Her phone was flung to the side of the street, flashing twice before it was crushed into pieces by a passing car. I'll beat you to death, you stinking, shameless woman. First, 2 women threw things at her from afar. Then, a large group of people suddenly swarmed over. Most of them were women, but there were also a few men standing on the periphery to watch the show. They all wore masks and shouted along. In the blink of an eye, Yi Huanyan's clean and tidy business attire was stained with the stench of vegetable leaves and eggs. A black MPV slowly drove past the crowd. The familiar model and license plate gave Yi Huanyan a glimmer of hope. Qiao Mu, who was driving, frowned and stepped on the brakes. Director Ling, its Secretary Yi. Chapter 31. Ling Han looked up at Yi Huanyan, who was surrounded by the crowd. She was wearing high heels and standing in the center of the crowd, so she was particularly eye-catching. She raised her white handbag with both hands to protect her head, and her clear eyes were looking in his direction expectantly. It was just like that year after the car accident, when Jiang Milan held his hand and looked at him with eyes full of expectation when she was dying. You must take good care of Yan Yan. I'm begging you. Qiao Mu stepped on the brakes and reached out to unbuckle her seatbelt. President Ling, I'll go down and help drive. The man in the back seat slowly spat out this sentence. His indifferent tone made it seem as if the person standing there being attacked was his enemy. It couldn't be better to let her fend for herself and not dirty his hands. Qiao Mu opened her mouth in surprise, but she didn't dare to disobey Ling Han's order. She fastened her seat belt again and released the brakes. The black MPV slowly disappeared from the end of the crowd. Yi Huanyan watched as the pair of eyes turned indifferent little by little. The slowly rolling up car window announced that he would not save her, and also announced that her expectations were turning into ashes bit by bit. Pa! A burning pain came from her forehead, and the broken eggshell mixed with the sticky egg liquid covered her eyes. She reached out her hand and tried to wipe it clean, but the more she wiped, the messier it became. You shameless vixen. Some bold people had already started to tear off her clothes, and some people grabbed her hair and pulled her entire face out of shape. You've misunderstood. I don't know Su Nianhua at all. Yi Huanyan screamed and crazily threw the white handbag in her hand at the people around her. You're full of lies. We've checked. You pestered our brother Hua in school back then. Yi Huanyan couldn't defend herself. She couldn't do anything except squinting her eyes and waving the bag in her hand to create a protective belt around herself. There were too many of them, and they were unreasonable. They only wanted to pour dirty water on her. These were fans, crazy and brainless fans. The self-deprecating thing was that most of these fans were the source of income for the pleasure group. Only they would spend impulsively for their idols, regardless of the consequences, to support their idols and pay for their idols. During the tearing, Yi Huanyan was almost out of strength. Her hair was pulled until it was draped over her shoulders like a madwoman. Those who were more ruthless pulled out a few strands of hair from the back of her head by the roots. The sticky feeling seeped into her neck. A gust of wind blew past, chilling her heart. Beat her to death. Beat her to death. Such a shameless woman. Get rid of evil for Brother Hua. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get out of the way. I've already called the police. Finally, a security guard who couldn't stand it anymore came forward and ordered the crowd to leave. Yi Huanyan was in a mess. The security guard couldn't stand it and handed her 2 pieces of tissue. Secretary Yi, do you want to go back to the company to clean up? No need, thank you for your help. Yi Huanyan wiped the egg liquid from her eyes and thanked the security guard. She resisted the grievance and great disappointment in her heart and walked towards the roadside tiredly. She wanted to call for a taxi, but it was rush hour at this time. It was impossible to find a taxi in the central business district. When she finally found one, she was pushed by a woman who came out of nowhere. The woman with a mask forced her way to the taxi. Yi Huanyan staggered, lost her balance, and fell on her, but on the ground. From the corner of her eyes, she caught a glimpse of the woman with the mask. She was the first one who rushed out and threw the egg at her. She was in a mess and didn't have the strength to argue with anyone. She got up from the ground and limped along the roadside. While walking, she stretched out her hand to call for a taxi. A group of security guards surrounded the entrance of the group. The manager of the security department frowned. The boss asked them to come out and help, which meant that they only needed to drive away those troublemakers. They didn't need to do anything else, right? On the interchange in the center of Lanjiang City, there was a long line of cars. It was the rush hour, so it was a big feature of Lanjiang City. Inside the expensive black MPV, Xiao Mu pressed the button to hang up the call and slowly let out a sigh of relief. Manager Li from the security department has already dealt with it. Those people came menacingly, but they all ran away when they heard that someone called the police. Secretary, you didn't get hurt. Ling Han absent-mindedly hummed in agreement, as if he didn't care about what he said. Director Ling, you still care about Secretary Yi. Otherwise, you wouldn't have let me inform the security department. Since that's the case, why did you just now at the entrance? You talk a bit too much today. A cold male voice came from the back seat and abruptly interrupted Xiao Mu. From the rearview mirror, she could see that the man's side profile was cold as he looked at the heavy traffic outside the window. A trace of viciousness appeared between his brows. For some reason, when he saw that woman being bullied by others, he originally thought that he would feel happy did not appear. Instead, he felt even more oppressed in his heart. This woman's life was truly harming others and herself. Lanjiang City was one of the 6 major provincial capitals in the country. The night was bustling, and when the sky darkened, the neon lights by the roadside gradually lit up. The weather was not very good, and the patter of raindrops fell on the car window, gradually forming a layer of cold fog in the distance. It was late autumn, and the rain was bone-chilling. Ji Xiaoye put on a face mask and went to open the door. She was full of joy, thinking that her takeout had arrived. However, when she opened the door, she saw a battered and exhausted woman. Her black suit and the white shirt inside were soaked, and her entire body was sticky. Her long black hair was stained with some sharp shards and mucus, as if she had just climbed out of a trash can. Yan Yan! Ji Xiaoye exclaimed in shock. What happened to you? Although Ji Xiaoye was worried when the call suddenly ended an hour ago, she thought that perhaps her phone suddenly ran out of battery. Yi Huanyan was usually an extremely rational and organized person, so she would not let herself fall into danger. Moreover, it was only 5 o'clock at that time. She had just gotten off work, so she should be at the company entrance. What could have happened with so many people? Ji Xiaoye pulled down the burglar chain and hastily welcomed Yi Huanyan inside. She originally wanted to reach out to support her, but she found that there was not a single spot on her body that she could bear to do so. You are... Hey. Before she could finish speaking, she saw that Yi Huanyan looked like she was about to fall. Ji Xiaoye hastily reached out to support her, but that sticky feeling made her grimace for a long time. I have nowhere to go. Can you let me stay for a night? A weak voice came out of her mouth. She was in a daze and sounded like she was talking in her sleep. Ji Xiaoye was stunned and instantly felt that something was wrong. She did not care about the dirt anymore and reached out to touch her forehead. It was unbelievably hot. Are you having a fever? After saying this, Yi Huanyan fell straight onto her shoulder. Ji Xiaoye was small in size. If Yi Huanyan was not thin, she would have been pressed down by now. She cried out in alarm and endured the pungent smell on her forehead. She pulled and pulled Yi Huanyan with great difficulty and finally threw her into the bathtub. Oh my God, that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.